Chapter 197. Yiwen smiled coldly and said, "Law Enforcement Hall? What a joke. You are already so old, yet you still dare to speak of the Tao of the Law Enforcement Hall. Impudent." Seeing that Yiwen did not care about them, one of the supreme elders could not help but feel embarrassed. He could not help but send a palm strike at Yiwen. Martial monarchs could already comprehend the laws of space. Although the old man's palm strike was an ordinary one, after it was infused with the laws of space, it was clearly extraordinary and unfathomable. The palm wind was clearly heading for Yiwen's chest. In the end, just as Yiwen was about to receive it, the palm wind suddenly disappeared and attacked his side. Boom. The difference in cultivation was too great. Yiwen was a medial grade martial king. However, this ordinary palm strike knocked him back. He vomited a large mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. Shin Manjun, who had finally killed all the running corpse monarchs, leaped into the air. Her footsteps were light as though she was taking a stroll in the park. In an instant she arrived beside the crowd. Before everyone's surprised gazes, Shin Manjuan's lily-white hands flew towards Song Ke, who was being supported by two supreme elders. There was a loud bang, and a formless palm landed on Song Ke's body. Song Ke immediately struggled free from the support of the two supreme elders. Xuanhuan. Song Ke tumbled back continuously until he reached the side of the underground river before he stopped. Song Ke's expression was extremely miserable. He got up and asked, "Martial Ant Shen, why?" The two supreme elders who were in front of Yiwen earlier did not dare to say anything when Shin Manjun made a move. There was no other reason than Shin Manjuan's seniority was the highest. She was also the strongest. Looking at her appearance, it was clear that she was very angry. No matter how good her relationship with Song Ke was, she did not dare to say anything at this moment. She could only think that Song Ke was unlucky. Shin Manjun snorted coldly. Her expression was as cold as frost. She could not be bothered with him. She slowly walked to the side of the underground river and looked at the rushing water. She frowned slightly. Suddenly Shin Manjun shouted, and all the essence in her body surged. Her clothes fluttered non-stop, and her aura rose rapidly. A strong wind blew, whistling non-stop. She ferociously sent a palm strike towards the riverbank. In the hundreds of meters of river that ran through the entire underground cave, the rushing river water immediately churned. In the river, there was not a single drop of water left, and all kinds of fish in the water fell continuously. Shin Manjun quickly glanced at the river, but she did not see Xiao Chen's figure. The turbulent underground river had already washed Xiao Chen's body to God knows where. Sighing, he waved his hand, and the river water that was a few meters in the air fell back down with a loud boom. This was the strength of a peak martial monarch. With a flip of their palm they could cause the rivers to flow in reverse and search. Shin Manjun stood by the river and pondered for a long time before leaving the shore. Seeing that Shin Manjuan's anger seemed to have subsided, everyone thought that they were about to heave a sigh of relief. However, the Heavenly Wolf King's gigantic body suddenly let out a crisp sound that resounded throughout the cave. Everyone looked over and saw Wuxia's body floating quietly in the air. She closed her eyes, her clothes fluttering, and her silver hair dancing in the wind. There was a silver crescent moon between her eyebrows, and it rippled as smooth as a mirror. "Not good." The Heavenly Wolf King passed down his strength to this girl, Leng Tianjing said loudly. A supreme elder at the side cried out hoarsely, "Earlier we were all distracted by what happened here. We did not notice the Heavenly Wolf King at all." After this supreme elder spoke, everyone looked at the one-armed Song Ke with resentment. If he had not killed Xiao Chen there would not be so many problems. Otherwise, how could the Heavenly Wolf King have the opportunity to pass down his strength to Wuxia under their noses? Once he passed down his strength, it would be impossible to snatch it back from Wuxia. This was because Wuxia's current cultivation had not reached the stage where she could condense a sage core. If she was killed, the energy that the Heavenly Wolf King inherited would scatter into the world. Furthermore, the more horrifying thing was that the instant before this girl died, the Heavenly Wolf King's 1,000-year cultivation would explode. The entire underground cave would collapse. Of the people present, only a few would be able to survive the explosion. The others would not be able to escape unscathed. This was also the reason why no one made a move even though they were furious. How hateful! Shin Manjun shouted and sent a palm strike at Song Quebec. The palm wind was like thunder, instantly sending Song Ke flying into the underground river. She had already lost close to 300 years of her lifespan. Although she did not show any signs of dying in a sitting posture, there was no guarantee that she would be in danger at any time. Only by entering the sage realm could she be completely safe. At this moment, Song Ke had spoiled the situation. She wished she could kill him with a palm strike. Song Ke, who only had one arm left, thrashed about in the water with all his might. The poor martial king's essence was messed up by this palm strike. He had to drink a few mouthfuls of water before he crawled to the shore. Wuxialover suddenly opened her eyes and a bright light shot out from them. She looked at the crowd and said, "Heavenly Saber Pavilion, you had best not touch my sage ancestor's body. I will be back." After she spoke, she threw out a jade strip. The jade strip turned into a ball of flame and flew to Wuxialover's feet. Her body slowly turned into a strand of flame and disappeared into the underground cave. Divine Flame Talisman. There is actually such a thing. When a supreme elder saw Wuxialover throw out the jade strip, his face was filled with despair. The Divine Flame Talisman was a teleportation secret treasure. After it was burned, it could bring its owner thousands of kilometers underground, vanishing into nothingness. It was said that the refinement method of this talisman had been preserved in the Great Jin Empire. However, it was extremely expensive. Each talisman required 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Furthermore, it could only be used once. Using it once was equivalent to expending 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Although this price was expensive, it was not worth mentioning when compared to one's life. Originally, there were people who were planning to lock Wuxialover up after she completely absorbed the energy of the Heavenly Wolf King's inheritance. Then they would extract her energy after she refined a sage core. Although it would take a long time, it was not impossible. Now that Wuxialover used the Divine Flame Talisman, all these thoughts were gone. A supreme elder sighed, 100 years of effort. In the end it was all for naught. Although the old Fiend King is dead, a new Fiend King has appeared. I wonder if the Heavenly Saber Pavilion can withstand another attack from a Fiend King. There were many tributaries in the underground river. The undercurrent was very turbulent. After Xiaoqin fell into the river, he was unconscious. When he sank to the bottom, he did not know where he was washed to. The blue dragon came from the water. Xiaoqin, who possessed the blue dragon martial spirit, could hold his breath underwater for a long time. He did not need to breathe. However, now that Xiaoqin's martial spirit was destroyed, he was like an ordinary person. He did not have any special abilities. Logically speaking, after Xiaoqin sank to the bottom of the river, he should have drowned after 2 hours. His abdomen would have swelled up. After 10 hours, he would have floated up again and turned into a corpse. However, Xiaoqin's current situation was very strange. His blue dragon martial spirit had already dissipated and he was completely crippled. However, he could still breathe underwater. As the undercurrent rose and fell, he did not know where it was going. Occasionally, there would be all sorts of water plants and duckweed entangling him, and fish and prawns would rise and fall. 2 days later, Xiaoqin woke up from his unconscious state. He felt a splitting headache and he felt very weak. His body swam in the water. Under the impact of the ferocious undercurrent, it was difficult for him to even turn around. When Xiaoqin felt the condition of his body, he felt it was strange. He did not understand why he could still breathe underwater after his blue dragon martial spirit had been destroyed. Calm down, Xiaoqin kept repeating to himself as he swam in the river. Although he could breathe underwater, the situation was still very dangerous. Song Ke's peak martial king attack had not only destroyed his martial spirit, but the internal energy that had spread out had also caused great internal injuries to his body. His internal organs were all damaged to varying degrees. If it were not for the fact that Xiaoqin's physique was extraordinary and that he had been tempered by the 7-leaf flower 7 times, his heart and lungs would have been shattered and he would have died. After drifting underwater for 2 days, the injuries in his body had not been treated. Furthermore, he had not eaten anything. Xiaoqin's physical strength could be said to be extremely weak. If he did not think of a way to get to the surface in the turbulent river, the problem of his physical strength would only worsen. In the end, he would die. While he was thinking, Xiaoqin had already been pushed a few hundred meters away by the undercurrent. Xiaoqin could not help but fear the ferocious undercurrent in his heart. Xiaoqin faced the undercurrent and did his best to control his body to turn around. A surging undercurrent suddenly attacked him, causing Xiaoqin's body to flip over. Guru! Guru! This sudden situation caused Xiaoqin to swallow a few mouthfuls of water. In the midst of the chaos, Xiaoqin grabbed a large amount of seaweed in the water and did his best to stabilize his body. This seaweed was rather sturdy. When Xiaoqin wrapped it in his hand, although the undercurrent was still ferocious, it could no longer carry it away. The seaweed, which was as thick as an arm, stabilized Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chen finally caught his breath and looked up. Although the river was somewhat turbid and he could not see the surface clearly, the light was not dim. This meant that the river was not too deep. Since that was the case, Xiao Chen had to think of a way to get to the surface. The main thing preventing him from getting to the surface was the undercurrent at the bottom of the river. If he let go of the seaweed in his hand, the undercurrent would immediately wash him down. This undercurrent was only about 5 meters thick. It was at the deepest part of the river. As long as he crossed this 5 meters, there would be no undercurrent. At that time he would be able to get to the surface naturally. If Xiao Chen still had his essence in the past, he could easily leap out of this underground river with one breath. When he landed, even the water on his body would quickly evaporate. However, not only was he severely injured, his martial spirit was also destroyed. He could not raise his essence and had not eaten for 2 days. As long as he let go of the seaweed in his hand, the surging undercurrent would immediately wash him down. After resting for more than half an hour, Xiao Chen carefully observed his surroundings. He slowly touched the 2 sides of the riverbed and discovered that the slope was filled with silt. When he stepped on it, he immediately sank half a meter deep. Xiao Chen was delighted. He thought of a way to get to the shore. As long as he followed the slope and stuck his arm into the silt, he would be able to slowly climb up. Chapter 198. To be safe, Xiao Chen first found a 10-meter-long strand of seaweed and wrapped it around his waist. Then he carried out his plan. In the turbulent undercurrent, every step was incomparably difficult. When Xiao Chen reached the top of the slope, he did not dare to be careless. He climbed up step by step. The undercurrent attacked his body continuously, nearly washing him away a few times. Xiao Chen dug his palms deep into the silt and poured all the black silt into his fingernails. He barely managed to avoid the undercurrent. After dodging the undercurrent with much difficulty, Xiao Chen loosened his body and removed the seaweed around his waist. After a while he emerged from the water and took a deep breath. Then he quickly rowed towards the shore. After reaching the shore, Xiao Chen was extremely tired. The dizziness intensified. He did his best to stay alert and control his desire to lie down. Then he removed all his wet clothes. Xiao Chen took out some dry clothes from the universe ring and put them on. Then he swallowed a blood-replenishing pill. After doing all this, he dragged his body to a cliff by the shore. Then he leaned against it and closed his eyes to rest. Unknowingly, Xiao Chen fell asleep. He was simply too tired. When he woke up again, Xiao Chen's spirit had recovered. With the help of the blood-replenishing pill, his injuries had also healed. Xiao Chen took out some dry rations and water from the universe ring. After he ate them, his strength slowly recovered. He wolfed down the dry rations and gulped down a large mouthful of water. Only then did Xiao Chen get up and look around him. He was in a rather dark cave. Xiao Chen wanted to release his spiritual sense instinctively. In the end, he discovered that there was no reaction. The spiritual sense that he had been using in the past did not appear. Xiao Chen could not help but smile bitterly. It looked like he had really become a cripple. He slowly walked to the riverside. The calm river water reflected Xiao Chen's pale face. Due to soaking in the river for too long, Xiao Chen's skin had turned frighteningly pale. Some parts of his skin had even peeled off. The appearance that Xiao Chen had changed using the shape-shifting spell had already returned to its original state. However, he could not be bothered with this now. After he cleaned off the mud from his fingernails, he turned around and looked at Xiao Chen. After he cleaned off the mud from his fingernails, he walked in the direction of the river. No matter what, he had to find an exit first. Dida, dida. Occasionally, water droplets would fall from above. The instant the water droplets landed, Xiao Chen's body instinctively moved backward. The water droplets brushed past Xiao Chen's nose and quickly fell to the ground. Looks like I still have the strength of my body. My combat instincts have not disappeared. Even without essence, I can still sense the direction of the water droplets. Xiao Chen clenched his fist and revealed a joyful expression. Due to gravity, the speed at which the water droplets fell was very fast. Xiao Chen could only rely on his body's instincts to sense the direction in which the water droplets would fall. Then he could easily dodge them. Even without a martial spirit, I can rely on my physical body to become a martial sage. What the predecessors could do, I can do as well. A determined look appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. After walking for a long time, the light in front of him slowly brightened. Xiao Chen could not help but increase his pace. After a while, the scene before him opened up. Even without a martial spirit, I can rely on my physical body to become a martial sage. What the predecessors could do, I can do as well. A determined look appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. A vast underground world appeared before Xiaoqian's eyes. It was a few hundred meters tall and had an unknown length and width. There were trees, plants, flowers, and rivers. It was unknown where the light came from. It was very strange. Xiaoqian hesitated for a while before he stepped in. It was as though he had passed through a barrier. Time stopped for a short moment. It was almost negligible. Afraid that something was wrong, Xiaoqian paced back and forth a few times. When he discovered that he could safely return, he did not pay much attention to it. Crunch. Crunch. A few birds suddenly flew past the forest in front. Xiaoqian was slightly startled. There were actually living creatures here. He had to be careful. If there were any ferocious beasts, it would be troublesome. Bang. Bang. Just as Xiaoqian was thinking this, a huge spirit beast dashed out of the forest. This was a scarlet flame bear. When it stood up, it was as tall as 2 grown men. Its red eyes were filled with a baleful aura as it looked at Xiaoqian. The scarlet flame bear was a rank 2 spirit beast. It was equivalent to a martial master. Xiaoqian had seen it before in the periphery of Seven-Horn Mountain. It looked very ferocious, but there was nothing special about it. However, it would be difficult for the current Xiaoqian to deal with it. Po, po. Just as Xiaoqian was thinking, the scarlet flame bear ran over on all fours. Soon it arrived in front of Xiaoqian. It sent out a palm strike with a force of several hundred kilograms. Xiaoqian did not panic. Before the front paw of the scarlet flame bear could reach him, he sensed the direction of the wind. He calmly took a step to the left and dodged the attack. Xiaoqian shouted and poured all his strength into his right fist. All the muscles in his right arm bulged up. It was like Xiaoqian felt a boundless power. He punched at the chest of the scarlet flame bear at lightning speed. In the next moment, the scarlet flame bear's sturdy body was sent flying with a bang. The sound of its internal organs shattering came from its body. After it fell to the ground, it could not get up again. Xiaoqian looked at all this in astonishment. After a while, when he saw that the scarlet flame bear was really dead, he muttered, "How is this possible? Even at its peak, the strength of my punch was only 1,500 kilograms. Now that my martial spirit is shattered and my injuries have not healed completely, it is already an extraordinary performance to be able to display even half of my strength." The scarlet flame bear's weight had already reached 500 kilograms. If Xiaoqian wanted to send it flying with a punch and shatter its internal organs, he would need at least 4,000 kilograms of strength. Xiaoqian looked suspiciously at his own fist. He did not dare believe it. "I feel like I did not use all my strength in that punch earlier. Why is my strength even stronger than before?" Xiaoqian could not figure it out no matter how he thought about it. He walked into the forest and found a scarlet flame bear at the periphery. When it was about to approach him, he punched it again. Just like before, this scarlet flame bear that weighed 500 kilograms was sent flying. Its internal organs were shattered and it died. Only now did Xiaoqian believe that everything was real. His strength was even stronger than before. Could it be that my cultivation realm did not disappear? The strength of my punch should be around 3,500 kilograms of force, close to 4,000 kilograms. Otherwise, it would be impossible for me to kill the scarlet flame bear in one punch, Xiaoqian said with certainty. What exactly is going on? Why did my physical strength increase? Xiaoqian thought hard for a long time, but he still could not figure it out. After a while, Xiaoqian smiled faintly. "Never mind, an increase in strength is a good thing. Since I cannot figure it out, I should not think too much about it for now." Thinking of this, Xiaoqian left the forest. The depths of the forest gave him a dangerous aura. There should be other stronger spirit beasts. Xiaoqian spent the remaining time exploring this unknown underground world. In the southeast direction, Xiaoqian unexpectedly discovered a natural herb field. It was lush and verdant, filled with all sorts of spirit herbs. Many of the spirit herbs were over 100 years old. However, before Xiaoqian got close to the herb field, he could already feel a few strong auras. Occasionally he could hear the terrifying roars of beasts. These were all strong spirit beasts. With Xiaoqian's current state, he could only watch from afar and shrink back. Seeing a mountain of treasure but not being able to get it was quite depressing. Xiaoqian avoided this area and continued moving forward. Although his martial spirit was destroyed, his physical strength was still there. His speed was not slow either. In one day, Xiaoqian had explored a radius of 1,000 meters. He discovered that he had completely underestimated the size of this underground world. After walking for one day, he had not even covered half the distance. For some unknown reason, the underground world also had day and night. As time passed, the light slowly turned dim. In the night, there were always some unknown dangers. Xiaoqian did not dare to stay here. He retreated all the way to the edge of the underground world before slowly stopping. Sitting down cross-legged, Xiaoqin decided to cultivate once more. Even though his martial spirit was destroyed, he had not completely given up. The blue dragon martial spirit was an ancient holy beast. It definitely had something extraordinary about it. Right now, there was no trace of spiritual energy in Xiaoqian's body. He was now truly an ordinary person. He was much weaker than when he first came to this world. At the very least, he still had the spiritual energy that he had cultivated for more than 10 years. Although he could not convert it into essence, it was more than enough to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. Now that there was no trace of spiritual energy in his body, he might have to wait another 16 years before he could reach his previous cultivation realm. If that was the case, no matter how strong Xiaoqian's willpower was, he would have to give up. Xiaoqin felt the surrounding spiritual energy and guarded his dantian. He breathed in and exhaled. His spirit pedestal was calm as he repeated these two actions continuously. This was the most basic breathing technique in the Qianwu continent. Aside from those with innate martial spirits, most people did not have any spiritual energy when they were born. Without spiritual energy, there was no way to circulate any cultivation technique. At this moment, one had to practice the breathing technique, absorbing some spiritual energy into one's body. When the amount of spiritual energy in one's body reached a certain level, one could officially start cultivating. The breathing technique did not have any grades, it was common throughout the continent. Slowly the qi that Xiaoqin breathed out became more solid. From a distance, it looked like a mist-like sword lingering for a long time. Hu. In the next moment, when Xiaoqin breathed in, the spiritual energy turned into a faint mist. It flowed through Xiaoqian's mouth and slowly flowed out of his meridians. The spiritual energy circulated around his body before settling in his dantian. It was about the size of a pinky finger. Xiaoqin rejoiced in his heart. He did not expect the first strand of spiritual energy he absorbed to be so big. Soon, he would be able to gather enough spiritual energy to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. His earlier worries about needing another 16 years were groundless. He had already experienced this process once. It made sense that the second time he gathered spiritual energy would be much smoother. After 4 hours, the spiritual energy that had settled in his dantian was sufficient to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. Xiaoqin stopped breathing and prepared to circulate the purple thunder divine incantation. Hua! The purple thunder divine incantation successfully circulated without any obstruction. The surrounding spiritual energy immediately poured into Xiaoqian's body in a frenzy. It was endless, completely exceeding Xiaoqian's expectations. Chapter 199. Why is it like this? Xiaoqian was startled. Suddenly he remembered what Yuan had told him before. If he forcefully cultivated in this underground, there was a risk of his body exploding. Xiaoqian's expression could not help but change greatly. He wanted to stop, but he was not resigned to it. Back when he was cultivating the purple thunder divine incantation on Seven-Horn Mountain, he had encountered such a situation and successfully condensed his martial spirit. If he gave up now, it would be too much of a pity. If he missed this opportunity, he might not have any hope of condensing his martial spirit again in the future. I'll just go crazy for once. The path of cultivation is filled with thorns. I have to fight with the heavens, fight with others, fight with myself. I have to be ruthless to everyone. If I can't even get past this hurdle, how can I fight with others in the future? Not to mention fighting with the heavens. After making up his mind, Xiaoqin steeled his heart. Not only did he not stop, he even sped up the circulation of the purple thunder divine incantation. Thunder roared in the sky. A whirlpool appeared above his head, spinning continuously. It quickly sucked in the surrounding spiritual energy before sending it into Xiaoqian's body. Bolts of lightning flashed in the air. Wind and thunder roared and mysterious phenomena appeared. Xiaoqian's body was not calm either. Spiritual energy filled his entire meridians. Now Xiaoqian's meridians were much wider and more resilient than before. The amount of spiritual energy they could contain was also several times more than before. If Xiaoqian's meridians were not stable, he would explode until not even his bones remained. Boom! Just as Xiaoqian felt like he could not hold on any longer, all 361 acupoints in his body opened with a boom. There was actually a tiny azure dragon in every acupoint. The 361 blue dragons opened their mouths and sucked, instantly sucking in all the spiritual energy in Xiaoqian's body, saving Xiaoqian's life. The whirlpool above his head did not stop. Immediately, new spiritual energy poured in. Just as Xiaoqian was about to collapse, the 361 azure dragons in his acupoints opened their mouths and sucked in again. The spiritual energy in his body was sucked dry once more. From afar, Xiaochen's 361 acupoints were emitting a blue glow. His entire body was like a blue dragon, forming a huge blue dragon. Swallowing clouds and spitting out mist, he roared furiously as he controlled the various phenomena in the world and accepted the baptism of lightning. It turns out that my martial spirit did not disappear. It was just divided into 361 small blue dragons and stayed in the acupoints of my body. Xiaochen thought in pleasant surprise. Every time the blue dragon in his acupoints breathed in and out, Xiaochen felt as if his entire body was cleansed by spiritual energy. It was extremely comfortable. After repeating this a total of 361 times, the mysterious phenomenon in the sky disappeared. The whirlpool above Xiaochen's head entered his body with a so sound. The spiritual energy in the world finally stopped pouring in. The whirlpool formed a miniature qi whirlpool in Xiaochen's dantian. As it spun slowly, drops of liquefied qi dripped down slowly. At the start, the speed at which the qi whirlpool dripped was very fast. Every time it spun one round, a drop would fall. In the end, it became slower and slower. Even after it spun more than 10 times, not a single drop fell. When Xiaochen counted carefully, he did not know if it was a coincidence or not, but there were exactly 361 drops of mysterious liquid. Xiaochen's mind moved. When he looked carefully, he discovered that this liquid was actually extremely pure essence. I clearly did not condense a martial spirit. It is just a qi whirlpool, yet it can actually turn spiritual energy into essence. This is really strange, Xiaochen said doubtfully. Looks like my martial spirit really did not scatter. It is just a different form of existence. This is good as well. Condensing essence from the qi whirlpool is much faster than before. Xiaochen controlled the essence in his body and slowly circulated it. He discovered that his cultivation realm did not fall. In terms of purity and quantity of essence, he had broken through to medial grade martial grandmaster. After circulating his essence for a great cycle, Xiaochen opened his eyes. A purple light pierced through the dark night sky before turning into 2 spots of purple light and disappearing from his eyes. Xiaochen got up and looked into the distance. He clenched his right hand into a fist and energy filled his entire body. This feeling of regaining control over his strength made Xiaochen feel very carefree. He could not help but let out a long roar. It was like the roar of a dragon. It was long and continuous, reverberating in the surroundings. Ha! Xiaochen punched through the air and punched a huge rock 50 meters in front of him. The Fengyan acupoint on his palm suddenly opened and the blue dragon in it disappeared. It turned into strands of azure light and spread to his arm. In an instant, his entire right hand was filled with a huge energy. The powerful force followed the direction of the punch and hit the 2-meter-tall boulder with a loud bang. The boulder immediately shattered into pieces and scattered in all directions. The blue dragon in the acupoint could actually turn into an azure light and attack along with the fist wind. This was a pleasant surprise. Furthermore, it was very strong. This is just the blue dragon in one acupoint, and it already has such a strong might. If I were to open all 361 acupoints in the future, how strong would its might be? Xiaochen thought in anticipation. He tried punching a few more times. In the end, he discovered that the acupoint on his palm was already completely closed. No matter how hard he tried, he could not open it. It should be that he had used up all his energy and was temporarily unable to use it. Xiaochen was not worried. There was still time in the future. There was no need to rush. In the following period of time, Xiaochen took out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring and executed all the martial techniques he knew. He could execute all the martial techniques without any obstructions. Furthermore, they were even more refined. Their might was much stronger than before. Only then did Xiaochen relax. It seemed like he had completely recovered his strength. Not only did the peak martial King Song K's punch not shatter his martial spirit, it even allowed his strength to improve. Perhaps this was the true face of the blue dragon martial spirit. Breaking down and rebuilding, establishing a brand new system. This completely stimulated the blue dragon martial spirit that he did not know how to use in the past. A silver warship flew quickly a few hundred meters in the sky. Xiaochen stood at the bow as the wind whistled past his ears. He extended his spiritual sense into the surroundings, carefully checking his surroundings. After his essence recovered, he could use his spiritual sense and secret treasures. When the sky brightened, Xiaochen piloted the silver warship and flew towards the natural herb field. There is a rank 5 spirit beast lightning ox in the northeast direction. It is guarding a rank 6 herb phoenix blood vine. The phoenix blood vine is a natural herb. It can be used directly to strengthen a cultivator's chi and blood. There is an unknown python in the northwest direction. It should be a peak rank 5 spirit beast. It is guarding a golden lotus. According to the Compendium of Cultivation, the golden lotus is the main ingredient in refining the profound returning pill. It is worth 100 inferior grade spirit stones. There is a one-eyed wolf in the south. It is a peak rank 5 spirit beast. It is guarding a rank 6 herb needle leaf grass. It is worth 50 inferior grade spirit stones. Now that Xiaoqin possessed his spiritual sense, he quickly scanned the situation in the herb field from high up in the sky. This underground space was filled with spiritual energy. There were also all sorts of natural treasures. With such a good place to cultivate, Xiaoqin did not intend to leave for now. He was prepared to cultivate here. He urgently needed some herbs to strengthen his physical body. Xiaoqin recalled the silver warship into his right eye and slowly landed in the northeast direction of the herb field. There was a scarlet phoenix blood vine there. It could be used directly to strengthen a cultivator's chi and blood, directly raising the strength of the physical body. Although it could not compare to the 7-leaf flower which had a rebirth effect to Xiaoqin, it was still a rare item. After consuming it, it should be able to increase his strength by 250 kilograms. Xiaoqin landed firmly on the ground and walked towards the lightning ox. The lightning ox had purple fur all over its body. It was at least twice the size of the water buffaloes on Earth. There was a silver horn on its head. It could instantly release horrifying lightning, numbing the body of a cultivator. A weaker cultivator would be electrocuted into charcoal. Roar! Seeing Xiaoqin getting closer, the lightning ox roared angrily at Xiaoqin. A rank 5 spirit beast already had a certain level of intelligence. It could tell how dangerous Xiaoqin was, so it warned him not to get any closer. Xiaoqin smiled faintly and ignored it. He pushed off the ground with his feet and the muscles in his body swelled up. He was filled with explosive power. He relied on the strength of his physical body and leaped towards the lightning ox. The lightning ox's reaction was very fast. The instant Xiaoqin leaped up, it stomped on the ground with its hooves, kicking up a cloud of dust. It charged towards Xiaoqin, who was flying through the air. When the lightning ox collided with its body, which weighed 1,000 kilograms, it had a force of 2,500 kilograms. Its aura was very ferocious. It could easily crush a small hill. Xiaoqin did not dodge. He clenched his fist tightly, giving off a crackling sound. He gathered all his strength into his right fist and punched the lightning ox's head. Bang! One man and one beast collided. A force of close to 5,000 kilograms collided, giving off a loud sound. Ripples spread out in all directions in the air. The taller plants in the herb field were all crushed into powder by the ripples, leaving only the lonely rhizomes. The huge force caused Xiaoqin's arm to go numb. His body flew back 5 meters. After he landed, he slid back another 2 meters before he came to a stop. The lightning ox was not in a good state either. It was sent tumbling by the punch. Its huge body rolled a few times on the ground before it slowly came to a stop. The lightning ox immediately stood up. Its eyes revealed a furious expression as it gathered a purple electric light on its white horns. The surrounding lightning attributed energy frantically poured into the ox's horns. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a surging light. Wuxia. A purple bolt of lightning tore through the air, flying quickly at Xiaoqin. Everywhere the lightning passed, the dust in the air turned into purple ashes. When one looked at it, the lightning looked even more mighty. With one look, one could tell that the might of the purple lightning was not to be underestimated. Xiaoqin did not dare to clash head-on. He circulated the blue dragon cloud soaring art and turned into a flood dragon. He moved about in the air, continuously changing his figure. Bolts of lightning chased after Xiaoqin, not letting up. After a while, the space around Xiaoqin was filled with densely packed lightning like a cage. Chapter 200. Under the electric light, Xiaoqin's hair all stood on end. Although he was not struck by the lightning, the air seemed to be filled with electricity. His skin already had a significant static reaction. Not good. Xiaoqin thought to himself, the lightning ox's intelligence is actually so high. The lightning that seemed to be randomly fired out was actually following a certain pattern, gradually gathering together. Shwa. In the sky, 9 bolts of lightning as thick as an arm quickly gathered together. They were like 5 pillars supporting the heavens as they headed for Xiaoqin. Heavenly lightning shield. The speed of the lightning was too fast. Furthermore, it was gathering from all directions. Even if Xiaoqin's movement technique was exquisite, he would not be able to pass through it. Xiaoqin could only defend. Chi. When the 9 huge lightning pillars collided with the heavenly lightning shield, they gave off a zzz sound. The heavenly lightning shield had the ability to absorb lightning. However, the strength of this lightning was too strong. It did not last for long before it shattered with a pa sound. The remaining lightning struck Xiaochen's body. There was a pai li pa pa sound on Xiaochen's body. The clothes on the surface of Xiaochen's body were all torn apart. Xiaochen's body was revealed to be filled with explosive muscles. The electricity continued to jump around on his skin. Fortunately, the heavenly lightning shield absorbed most of the electricity. The remaining might was still somewhat weakened. Xiaochen did not receive any fatal injuries. Xiaochen endured the pain in his body and leaped into the air. He arrived beside the lightning ox. At this moment, the lightning ox had used its trump card. It was at its weakest. After it recovered, it would take a lot more time to deal with it. Flight on wings, disordered dance of 1,000 years. Xiaochen's hands moved, changing the original sword move into a fist move. His figure flickered and the wind from his fist howled. In the blink of an eye, he had sent out more than 1,000 punches around the lightning ox. Bang, 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 bang. Every punch contained more than 2,000 kilograms of force. When they landed on the purple body of the lightning ox, it cried out in pain. However, it could not do anything to Xiaochen, who was moving around at high speed. When the disordered dance of 1,000 years was completed, Xiaochen landed beside the lightning bull. The Fengyan acupoint on his right palm opened, and the blue dragon inside transformed into a ball of cyan light, wrapping around Xiaochen's entire right arm. In an instant, Xiaochen once again felt the feeling of his right hand being filled with power like yesterday. With a bang, a series of crisp sounds rang out from within the lightning ox's body. All of its internal organs had been shattered and its huge body was sent flying back dozens of meters. Black blood flowed out of the corner of its mouth. This lightning ox was dead. Xiaochen sat down cross-legged and slowly expelled the electricity in his body. The qi whirlpool in his dantian spun rapidly. The surging essence instantly squeezed or swallowed the electricity in his meridians. After a while, Xiaochen got up and changed his clothes. Then he walked towards the rank 6 phoenix blood vine and carefully picked it. Then he placed it in his universe ring. After taking a look at the corpse of the lightning ox, Xiaochen slowly walked over. He took out a small knife and started to dissect it. The corpse of a rank 5 spirit beast was filled with treasures. Xiaochen did not want to waste it. This was especially so for the silver horn of the lightning ox. It should be several decades old. It had been tempered by electricity for a long time. It could be used to forge a lightning-attributed bone weapon. Its value was not lower than the phoenix blood vine. Xiaochen took out a jade bottle and collected the blood. Then he took out the spirit core and cut off the most delicious parts of the lightning ox's body. Only then did he leave in satisfaction. Originally, he wanted to stay for a while longer and collect all the herbs in the surroundings. However, the earlier battle medicine had attracted the attention of the other spirit beasts. It was relatively easy to deal with one rank 5 spirit beast at a time. However, if there were many of them, it would be very dangerous. Furthermore, among the auras, Xiaochen could feel the aura of a peak rank 6 spirit beast. That was a spirit beast guarding the center of the herb field. Earlier, Xiaochen had checked the place with the densest spiritual energy in the entire herb field. There was a flowing light marigold growing there. The flowing light marigold was an extremely precious rank 7 herb. Just one flowing light leaf had the healing effects of a rank 6 medicinal pill. Furthermore, there were several rare medicinal pills in the compendium of cultivation that required this leaf as a medicinal catalyst. However, the most precious thing was the flowing light flower. The flowing light flower only bloomed once every 800 years. Just one petal was enough to increase a person's intelligence. This was what cultivators referred to as comprehension ability. After consuming it, it would increase a cultivator's comprehension ability greatly. They would be able to comprehend cultivation techniques or martial techniques much faster than ordinary people. It could allow a person with mediocre talent to immediately become talented. For example, Xiaochen had yet to comprehend the highest realm of the clear wind chop. If he consumed this flowing light flower, he might be able to comprehend it immediately. Of course, all of this could only be wishful thinking. Beside the flowing light golden lamp, there was a peak rank 6 spirit beast guarding it all year round. In the surroundings, there were several 6th rank spiritual beasts eyeing him. With so many 6th rank spiritual beasts, before Xiaochen could even get close to them, he would probably die. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiaochen steered the silver warship away before the spirit beasts arrived. He stopped in front of a towering tree not far from the herb field. The tree was several meters wide and towered into the clouds. Its branches were luxuriant, and Xiaoqin looked extremely small standing beneath it. There were many treasures in the herb field, and Xiaoqin did not plan on leaving. He intended to use this place as his base of operations. Every once in a while he would go to the herb field and cultivate there. Taking out the phoenix blood vine, Xiaoqin revealed a smile. This phoenix blood vine should be at least 100 years old. If he brought it to the market in the heaven viewing platform, it would be worth at least 60 inferior grade spirit stones. Taking out a sharp knife from the universe ring, Xiaoqin peeled off the phoenix blood vine. Then he cut off a small piece and placed it in his mouth. After chewing it a few times he swallowed it. The phoenix blood vine instantly turned into a warm current that flowed into his body. The qi and blood in his body surged. Xiaoqin felt like every cell in his body was burning, filled with energy. Directly chewing natural treasures was very dangerous. Previously, when he consumed the 7-leaf flower and 7-leaf fruit, the timing was rather special. It was when his body was in dire need of energy, so he was not afraid. However, this time was different. Xiaoqin's qi and blood were already flourishing. If he directly consumed the entire phoenix blood vine, his vigorous qi and blood would immediately burn up. His body might even spontaneously combust. Xiaoqin chewed the phoenix blood vine piece by piece. When he had consumed a third of the phoenix blood vine, he felt like his body was about to explode. So he quickly stopped. Xiaoqin sat cross-legged and started to circulate his energy, completely refining this huge medicinal energy. His essence slowly flowed along the meridians in his body, catalyzing the medicinal energy of the phoenix blood vine. After half an hour, Xiaoqin finally finished refining this medicinal energy. He felt his blood boil like it was on fire, filled with energy. Xiaoqin looked around and found a huge rock about 1 meter tall that he could encircle with both hands. He walked in front of it and casually punched it. Chi. The hard rock was like mud. Xiaoqin directly punched through it before withdrawing his hand. Xiaoqin revealed a faint smile. Before I consumed the phoenix blood vine, a casual punch would only have the strength of 1,500 kilograms. After I circulate my qi, it can reach 4,000 kilograms. A full-powered punch can reach 2,500 kilograms. Now, I have only consumed a small portion of the phoenix blood vine, and a casual punch can already reach 3,500 kilograms. If I were to consume the entire phoenix blood vine, it would probably increase my previous strength by 500 kilograms. While he was thinking excitedly, Xiaoqin punched with all his might. A force of 2,500 kilograms struck the huge rock. The huge rock shattered into countless stone shards, flying in all directions. Xiaoqin was stimulated by the corpse monarch that day. The physique that he had always been proud of was not worth mentioning in front of the corpse monarch. To him it was a form of humiliation. It made him have an intense and urgent desire for the strength of his physical body. Now that he had such a good opportunity, he had to treasure it properly and continue tempering his physical body. Most cultivators would not be like Xiaoqin, stubbornly cultivating their physical body. In their opinion, cultivation realm was the most important. When one's cultivation realm was higher, one's essence would naturally be stronger. If one's physical body could reach several thousand kilograms of force, one could do the same with strong essence. However, Xiaoqin did not think this way. He had a vague understanding that the cultivation of a cultivator was inseparable from the physical body. Only by cultivating the strength of the physical body to the peak would one be able to go further in the future. Perhaps these people, like Ji Changkong, Mu Qingxue, Chu Chaoyun, Hua Yunfei, and Duan Yuqing, were geniuses with innate martial spirits and incomparable talent. Right now their cultivation realm was rising very quickly. The highest was probably already a medial grade martial saint. However, in the future they would surpass martial king, then martial monarch, or the lucky ones would enter the sage realm. Without a strong body, they would not be able to reach Emperor Wu's realm. In the following 2 days, Xiaoqin practiced the clear wind chop during the day. He comprehended the third stage of the clear wind chop, only seeing the cool wind and not the saber. After practicing unceasingly, Xiaoqin's comprehension of the final stage of the clear wind chop had already reached the threshold. As long as he had a period of time, he would definitely be able to enter the next stage and enter the great perfection stage. At night, Xiaoqin would continue to consume the phoenix blood vine. After refining it, he would strengthen his qi and blood and increase his vital qi. On this particular day, Xiaoqin placed the last piece of the phoenix blood vine into his mouth and chewed it gently. When he felt a warm flow, he immediately sat down cross-legged and started refining it. Xiaoqin slowly circulated his essence. When the last strand of medicinal energy from the phoenix blood vine was completely refined, the phoenix blood vine that had been fused with Xiaoqin's body for the past 3 days suddenly surged. The qi and blood in Xiao Chen's body surged continuously. Strands of white smoke came out from the top of Xiao Chen's head. Boom. After a while, Xiao Chen felt the qi and blood in his body explode. Pah, 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 pah. All the bones in Xiao Chen's body gave off crackling sounds. All 361 acupoints in his body opened up. Beams of azure light came from the acupoints. If there was an outsider looking at Xiao Chen from afar, they would discover the image of a blue dragon coiled around Xiao Chen's body, wrapping around him. This sudden situation did not surprise Xiao Chen. On the contrary, he felt it was somewhat familiar. It was as if he had experienced this scene 10,000 years ago. Chapter 201. With a thought, Xiao Chen muttered, "Open." The Laogong acupoint below the Fengyan acupoint on Xiao Chen's right hand released an intense azure light. The blue dragon in the acupoint turned into a clear shadow and covered his entire right arm. Xiao Chen opened his eyes and punched out. An azure light left his body and a tree 100 meters in front of him was immediately chopped in half. The azure light did not slow down at all. Xiao Chen got up and said in pleasant surprise, "The second acupoint on my right hand is open as well. So this is the way to open it. When my qi and blood reach a certain level, I can choose to open an acupoint. Is this the secret of the blue dragon martial spirit?" Xiao Chen muttered to himself. It was like there was a voice in his mind telling him what to do earlier. It was like a dream. Actually, this was also the sorrow of the blue dragon martial spirit. The inheritance of the other 3 holy beasts was not broken. There was complete information to look at. If there was something that he did not understand, the elders of the clan would teach him. Only Xiao Chen did not understand anything. He had to figure everything out by himself. There were many simple principles that he could not understand even after thinking for a long time. As a result, Xiao Chen had not used the various mysteries of the blue dragon martial spirit since he started cultivating. It could be said that this was a great sorrow. He had a mountain of treasures but he could not use them. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen looked at the herb field not far away. He said, "No matter what, it looks like cultivating the physical body is the right path. The power of the blue dragon martial spirit requires a strong physical body to be able to bring out its full power." Xiao Chen vaguely understood why this body was unable to condense a martial spirit after more than 10 years. It was not because he was not talented enough, but because his physical body was not strong enough at that time. It could not withstand the pressure of condensing the blue dragon martial spirit. Early the next morning, Xiao Chen steered the silver warship to the herb field and found another medicinal herb that could increase qi and blood. The guardian of this herb was also a 5th-rank spirit beast. Xiao Chen was very familiar with the process. After his strength increased by 500 jin, he was able to deal with the rank 5 spirit beast even more easily. Just like last time, he quickly dealt with the spirit beast's corpse, picked the medicinal herbs and immediately left. 3 days later, Xiao Chen had successfully refined this 100-year-old herb that could increase qi and blood. Unfortunately, his strength had only increased by 250 kilograms. Furthermore, he had not opened another acupoint. On the 4th day, Xiao Chen used the same method to obtain a 100-year-old medicinal herb. This time, after refining it, the effects were even worse than before. It only increased his strength by 150 kilograms. As the number of times he used it increased, the effects of the 100-year-old herbs became worse and worse. In the end, there was almost no effect at all. It was just a simple replenishment of his physical strength. The time that Xiao Chen took to refine the herbs also became shorter and shorter. Now, he only needed half a day to safely refine a 100-year-old herb. After half a month, Xiao Chen finally managed to increase his strength by 500 kilograms with much difficulty. His full power strike now had the strength of 7,000 kilograms. Furthermore, the 3rd acupoint on his right arm, the Daling acupoint, was finally opened. Xiao Chen took a deep breath and opened the Fengyan acupoint, Laogong acupoint, and Daling acupoint on his right arm, one after the other. They gave off beams of azure light. When the 3 beams of azure light overlapped, his entire arm felt like it was about to explode. It was filled with boundless energy. "Kill!" Xiao Chen shouted and leaped into the air. He punched the ground in the distance. The azure light left his body and the 3 beams of azure light merged together. The azure light formed a blue dragon in the air. The somewhat blurry blue dragon charged towards the ground ferociously. In the next moment, bang, bang, bang. There were 3 consecutive explosions on the ground. A large pit with a diameter of 10 meters was blasted open. In an instant, dust flew everywhere, sand and stones flew everywhere. Xiao Chen withdrew his hand and revealed a faint smile. "I have only opened 3 acupoints and I am already so strong." I wonder how strong I will be after I open all 18 acupoints on my right arm. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation, he had not reached the level where he could externalize his essence. That was a technique that only martial saints could grasp. However, Xiao Chen's azure dragon image was not essence. He did not know what it was. He could only interpret it as the dragon chi of the blue dragon sage spirit. Only dragon chi could be so strong. Unfortunately, the further one progressed, the more difficult it would be to open the acupoints. The 100-year-old herbs that could increase chi and blood were no longer of any use. Xiao Chen looked at the herb field and muttered, "Looks like I have to search for herbs older than 200 years. However, herbs older than 200 years have spirit beasts guarding them. They are all at least peak rank 5 spirit beasts. It will not be easy to pick them." A peak rank 5 spirit beast was equivalent to a human superior grade martial saint. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation as a medial grade martial grandmaster, it would be difficult for him to challenge it. Riches are found in danger. On the path of cultivation, one has to fight with the heavens, the earth, and people. If one does not even have the courage to fight, then how can one continue on the long path of cultivation? A resolute look appeared in Xiao Chen's eyes. He used his right hand to violently smack the huge tree beside him. Dong, dong. Just as Xiao Chen was about to sit down and rest, he suddenly had a look of astonishment in his eyes. Something was wrong with this sound. Xiao Chen turned around and revealed a bewildered expression. He looked at the huge tree and sent his spiritual sense into it, trying to see through it. Wah! Just as Xiao Chen's spiritual sense touched the edge of the tree, he felt like his brain was pricked by a needle. The pain was boundless and he quickly withdrew his spiritual sense. Dong, dong. Xiao Chen knocked on the tree twice again. This time, when he listened carefully, the echo was even clearer. Xiao Chen said with certainty, "There is really something strange. Could it be that there is nothing inside?" Xiao Chen said suspiciously as he looked at the huge tree in front of him. It would require a few adults to encircle it. Xiao Chen took out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring and grasped its hilt. Essence gathered on the saber, forming a blazing saber light as he swept it at the thick tree trunk. The 10-meter-long saber light swept across the huge tree. With a hua sound, the saber light was absorbed into the tree, vanishing without a trace. Xiao Chen sheathed his saber and said, "Essence attacks are useless? In that case, let's use our fists." Bang! Xiao Chen used his full power and struck the tree trunk with 7,000 kilograms of force. However, the tree trunk did not budge at all. The force extended to the roots buried deep in the ground, causing the entire ground to tremble. It was still useless. Xiao Chen tried all sorts of methods. He wanted to break open the tree trunk and check it out. In the end, it was all to no avail. The more it was like this, the more interested Xiao Chen became. This meant that there was a whole new world inside this tree. Xiao Chen leaped up gently and flew to the top of a branch. He started to check it out carefully. Since he could not attack it forcefully, he could only find the entrance. The leaves of the lush tree fluttered in the wind. It was very troublesome for Xiao Chen to search. He looked up meter by meter. Time slowly passed. When Xiao Chen arrived at the top of the tree, he finally found a tree hole that he suspected to be the entrance. The tree hole was very well hidden. It was covered by a pile of dense leaves. If not for Xiao Chen's meticulousness, he would not have been able to find it. The dark tree hole happened to be the size of a wash basin. It could fit a person. Xiao Chen broke off a branch and tossed it in. After a long time he heard a faint sound. As long as it is not a bottomless hole, it does not matter. Seeing that the branch had already reached the bottom, Xiao Chen did not hesitate and directly entered. After entering, it was much more spacious. Xiao Chen could turn around and stretch freely. His speed of descent was very fast. Not long after, Xiao Chen landed firmly on the ground. Xiao Chen took out a night illumination pearl and the dark space was illuminated. The scene at the bottom immediately appeared before Xiao Chen's eyes. This was a spacious wooden hut. It was 10 meters long and 10 meters wide. There were simple decorations in the room. They were all very ordinary things. A long painting hung on the wall in front of the hut. There was an imposing man in the painting. He had long hair and was dressed in black. His eyes were like deep water and his face was like a knife. He stood with his hands behind his back, and there was a saber stabbed into the ground in front of him. The corner of the black-clothed man's mouth curled up, revealing a cold smile. The painter's skills were very high. The expression of this person was very lifelike. Xiao Chen felt that this person looked familiar. When he shone the night illumination pearl on him, it was like the man was right in front of him. Under the illumination of the light, Xiao Chen could clearly see the appearance of this person. After a while, Xiao Chen said excitedly, This is the Saber Emperor, the founder of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He is also the only martial emperor of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. There was a statue of the Saber Emperor on the heaven viewing platform. Xiaoqin had seen it before. However, he had only taken a quick glance and did not have a deep impression of it. Now that he looked at it carefully, he recalled. There was no consensus on who was the strongest in the history of the Great Qin nation. However, the Saber Emperor, the Sword Emperor, the First Qin Emperor, the Dark Knight Emperor, the Thunder King, and the other martial emperors in the history of the Great Qin nation were all recognized as the strongest. It was a pity that these great emperors were not born in the same era. They had never competed with each other before, so no one knew who was the strongest. Some people said it was the Saber Emperor because he could split a 5,000-kilometer-long river with one saber strike. Some people said it was the Misty Sword Sect's Sword Emperor because he once went to the Great Qin nation to challenge the Qin king. Everyone had their own opinions. However, it was undeniable that these people were experts who once stood at the peak of the Great Qin nation. Even after 10,000 years, their deeds could not be forgotten. Among them, the Saber Emperor was the oldest martial emperor. Before the Qianhu dynasty was destroyed, he had already established the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Furthermore, he was one of the most influential people in the Qianhu continent at that time. However, this was definitely not the former residence of the Saber Emperor. This was because it was clear that this portrait was made by a later generation. It was not a portrait of the Saber Emperor. Xiaoqin collected his thoughts and looked around the room to see if there were any clues. He wanted to find out whose residence this was. There was a prayer mat in the middle of the room that attracted Xiaoqin's attention. Prayer mats were very common. They were the prayer mats that regular cultivators used to meditate. Of course, there were some prayer mats that were not ordinary. They were woven from cattails that possessed spirituality. There were even some small spirit-gathering formations carved on them. Cultivating on them could increase the rate at which one could absorb spiritual energy. Xiaoqin had never used a prayer mat before, so he did not know much about it. The thing that attracted his attention was the pile of black ashes on the prayer mat. Chapter 202. Looking at the pile of ashes, Xiaoqin had a guess in his heart. However, he was not sure. He stretched out his index finger and gently dipped it into the prayer mat. After he sniffed it, Xiaoqin was finally sure of his earlier guess. This pile of ashes was caused by a cultivator entering a state of berserking qi deviation. He had spontaneously combusted and burned himself to death. This kind of thing was very common for cultivators of high cultivation. The higher one's cultivation, the higher the chance of entering a state of berserking qi deviation. The consequences would also be more severe. Although everyone knew of the danger involved, they could not stop. The further they went, the more insignificant they felt, the more they did not want to give up. Who? Xiaoqin casually sent out a palm wind and swept away the ashes. A ring flickering with spiritual light appeared on the prayer mat. The words Hentian were written on the inside of the ring. Hentian Qi Hentian. So it is him. The doubts in Xiaoqin's heart cleared up. Qi Hentian was a pavilion master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He had outstanding talent. At a young age, he had already become a martial monarch. In terms of talent, he was one of the best in the entire history of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Rumor had it that after he passed down the position of pavilion master, he lived in seclusion. No one knew where he went. At that time, his cultivation had already reached the peak of martial sage. So, he came here to cultivate, Xiaoqin muttered to himself. No wonder no one could find him. This place was very well hidden. He hung the portrait of the Saber Emperor on the wall. He probably wanted to use the Saber Emperor to motivate himself, hoping to reach the level of Emperor Wu. However, this had nothing to do with Xiaoqin. What he was more concerned about was the spatial ring of a martial sage. There should be a lot of treasures in it. When Xiaoqin sent his spiritual sense into the universe ring, he discovered 3 secret manuals and a spirit weapon. It was an inferior grade heaven-ranked saber. There was also a large pile of spirit stones behind it. When Xiaoqin looked carefully, he discovered they were all medial grade spirit stones. Even though Xiaoqin had seen a large pile of spirit stones at the headquarters of the Mines of Heaven, it was still somewhat dazzling. Most of the spirit stones in the headquarters of the mines were inferior grade spirit stones. Furthermore, they could only satisfy one's eyes. However, this ring was filled with medial grade spirit stones. Most importantly, these were all ownerless items. They were now Xiaoqin's personal wealth. Suppressing his joy, Xiaoqin took out the 3 secret manuals and the long saber. He put the long saber aside and took out the first secret manual to read. Dragon and Tiger Body Sculpting Art. Xiaoqin slowly recited it. This was an earth-ranked mid-grade body strengthening technique. It was specially used to temper the body, refine the bones, strengthen the body, and strengthen one's chi, blood, and strength. Medial-grade earth-ranked martial techniques were already extremely rare. Even in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, it would be difficult to find a few. Under the situation where this heaven-ranked cultivation technique did not appear, it would be difficult to find a few. An earth-ranked cultivation technique was already the strongest. Furthermore, cultivation techniques were even rarer than martial techniques. After all, the continent did not lack martial techniques. No matter how one looked at it, this dragon and tiger body sculpting art was a treasure-grade secret manual. The dragon and tiger body sculpting art was split into 7 layers. The first layer strengthened the body, greatly increasing the chi and blood. The second layer, divine power, splitting mountains and rocks. The third layer, tiger roars deep in the forest, 100 beasts greet. The fourth layer, dragon roars throughout the world, piercing the heavens. The fifth layer, dragon tendon tiger bone, pulling mountains and rivers. When Xiaoqin saw the introduction, he rejoiced in his heart. He smiled and said, "This is great. This dragon and tiger body sculpting art is simply tailor-made for me. Furthermore, it came from a martial sage. This means that the direction I am taking in cultivating the physical body is not wrong." Although Xiaoqin's physical body was strong, he had not been able to make good use of it. He could only use brute force to attack in battle. He would not be able to gain an advantage against enemies who used essence. If one could use brute force to shatter mountains and rocks, others could do the same with essence. There was not much of a difference. However, with this dragon and tiger body sculpting art, the situation was different. His brute force would undergo a qualitative change. He would be able to use the advantages of his physical body more skillfully. In battle, he would be able to achieve an unexpected result, giving his opponent a lightning-quick strike. The most important thing was that Xiaoqin had obtained this dragon and tiger body sculpting art from a peak martial sage. Furthermore, it was one of the 3 secret manuals that he had brought with him when he was cultivating. This showed that this senior had comprehended the importance of the physical body in the final moments of his life. If he wanted to break through to martial emperor, he had to raise both the quality of his physical body and his cultivation. This proved that Xiaoqin's idea of cultivating the physical body was correct. The physical body and cultivation were both indispensable. Otherwise, he would only be able to advance to martial sage. Xiaoqin put away the dragon and tiger body sculpting art and took out the second secret manual to read. This was a fist technique called the Great Dragon Tiger Fist. Based on the name, it should be a set with the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. There was a total of 4 moves. First move, Fierce Tiger Leaving the Mountains. Second move, Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. Third move, Hissing Dragon Tiger Roar. Fourth move, Leaping Tiger Soaring Tiger. Note: this fist technique can only be practiced after the dragon and tiger body sculpting art is cultivated to the 3rd layer. Indeed, this was a set of martial techniques for the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. Xiaoqin smiled and closed his hands. Then he flipped open the 3rd secret manual. The 3rd secret manual was rather strange. It was a sword technique called the Heart-Nourishing Universe Sword. It was also an earth-ranked martial technique. Xiaoqin only took a quick glance at the sword technique and ignored it. He had not thought of cultivating a sword technique yet. After looking at the 3 secret manuals, Xiaoqin said suspiciously, "Strange as the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's pavilion master, why are the last 3 martial techniques he left behind not related to saber techniques?" Furthermore, the strangest thing was that Xianxia had started to cultivate his sword techniques. After thinking about it, Xiaoqin felt that there was only one possibility. Xianxia was a genius in saber techniques. He had spent his entire life researching saber techniques. His research on saber techniques had already reached the peak. However, he was still unable to break through to martial sage. Perhaps, in the end, he felt that although he was talented, his comprehension of saber techniques could not improve further. He could only rely on other methods to make a breakthrough. Cultivating a sword technique was one of his attempts. When Xiaoqin thought about it, he felt it was funny. Everyone in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion scoffed at sword techniques. If a person with a sword wanted to enter the Heavenly Saber Pavilion with a weaker cultivation, they would be killed before they could even enter Saber City. Since ancient times, the sword and the saber could not coexist. If they knew that there was once a genius pavilion master who focused on researching sword techniques, what expression would they have? Xiaoqin suddenly thought, since he is learning the sword, he must have a sword. The sword that Xianxia used should not be ordinary. Since it is not in the universe ring, it must be somewhere else in this wooden hut. Xiaoqin started to look around. After searching for a long time, he could not find anything. Just as Xiaoqin was about to give up, he unexpectedly saw a sharpened tree branch. Holding the tree branch in his hand, Xiaoqin could not help but laugh hoarsely. Of course, xianxia's sword techniques had not reached the level where everything could be used as a sword. In the end, he still had some prejudice against sword techniques. The pride in his heart looked down on sword techniques. In the end, the tool that he used to learn sword techniques was just a sharpened tree branch. There was nothing special about the tree branch. Xiaoqin casually tossed it aside and picked up the treasured saber. There were 2 flying dragons carved on the simple and unadorned scabbard. The saber hilt was long and had the words roaming dragon carved on it. The handguard was like a dragon pearl with 2 flying dragons spitting it out. Grasping the saber hilt tightly, Xiaoqin drew the roaming dragon saber with a schwa sound. The saber was 7 feet and 2 inches long. The streamlined blade flickered with a cold light. The instant the roaming dragon saber left its scabbard, it immediately connected with the qi whirlpool in Xiaoqian's dantian. It was like an endless meridian, sending Xiaoqian's essence into the saber in an endless stream. Schwa. A strand of saber qi automatically came out of the saber and chopped the painting of the saber emperor on the wall in half. The ability to automatically release saber qi was a very important ability of a heaven-rank spirit weapon. It allowed cultivators who had not advanced to martial saint to release saber qi. If they advanced to martial saint, the saber qi would be even more solid. However, this essence exhausted a lot of it. Xiaoqin had not held it for long. At this moment he felt a small portion of his essence depleted. He quickly sheathed the roaming dragon saber. Xiaoqin thought about his lunar shadow saber. It was originally a peak heaven-ranked spirit weapon. It was not without reason that Ao Jiao sealed it. Given Xiaoqian's cultivation at that time, he would not have been able to even swing his saber once. The harvest in the tree hole was not small. After Xiaoqin searched carefully again, he discovered that there was really nothing left. Just as Xiaoqin was about to leave, his gaze suddenly fell on the round prayer mat. A prayer mat used by a bona fide peak martial sage to cultivate and meditate should not be something that those roadside stalls can compare to. I'll give it a try first. Otherwise, it would be too unfortunate if I miss out on this treasure, Xiaoqin said as he walked towards the prayer mat. Just as Xiaoqin sat down cross-legged, a horrifying force came from the bottom of the prayer mat and rebounded at him. The overwhelming force knocked Xiaoqin heavily into the wooden wall. Bang! Xiaoqin vomited a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. Before the force from the collision subsided, his body bounced a few times. Every time he bounced, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Xiaoqin vomited a total of 9 mouthfuls of blood before he slowly stopped. When he saw the incredibly ordinary prayer mat on the ground, he revealed a horrified expression. Xiaoqin swallowed a blood-replenishing pill and executed the gravity spell. He immediately flew out and jumped off the tree. When he landed on the ground and rested for a long time, Xiaoqin's heart was still thumping heavily. The earlier experience was simply too horrifying. Although it was only for a short moment, Xiaoqin still felt a lingering fear. The instant Xiaoqin sat on the prayer mat, he felt like he could feel the pulse of the entire Lingyun mountain range. He saw a red ball of light jumping continuously under the ground like a human heart. Spirit veins origin. These were the words that appeared in Xiaoqin's mind at that time. That prayer mat was indeed not simple. There were Tao markings carved on it, which attracted the horrifying energy of the spirit veins origin. However, this was not something that Xiaoqin could use. With his current cultivation, he was not qualified to use the prayer mat before the energy of heaven and earth. Only a sage could use a prayer mat to cultivate and not be knocked back by that huge energy. After a night of silence, Xiaoqin slowly recovered from his internal injuries. His excellent physique allowed him to recover much faster than ordinary people. By the time the sun rose, most of his injuries were already healed. Xiaoqin took out the dragon and tiger body sculpting art and read it carefully. His original plan of searching for 200-year-old herbs had to be put aside for now. Chapter 203. The first and second layers of the dragon and tiger body sculpting art were the foundations. They strengthened the body, increased qi and blood, formed divine energy and split mountains. Xiaoqin had already reached these levels long ago. Now that he was cultivating the dragon and tiger body sculpting art, there were no obstacles. In just half a day he had already cultivated it to the second layer. Now he started on the third layer. Tiger roars deep in the forest, 100 beasts wave. Cultivation techniques were different from martial techniques. They did not require a high comprehension ability, one just had to follow the instructions. A person with a good physique, or as the saying goes, a good aptitude would cultivate very quickly. A person with a bad aptitude would cultivate very slowly. 7 days later, Xiaochen finally cultivated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art to the 3rd layer. This was mainly due to his good physical foundation. If a normal person cultivated it, no matter how good their aptitude was, they would have to cultivate for at least a month. After cultivating the dragon and tiger body sculpting art to the 3rd layer, all Xiaochen had to do now was circulate the cultivation technique. All the bones in his body would crackle and the muscles in his limbs would be filled with explosive energy. When Xiaochen punched out, aside from the wind from the punch, there was actually the roar of a tiger. The roar sounded continuously, and its aura was very imposing. It was truly the tiger roars deep in the forest, 100 beasts wave, none dared to contend with it. The most direct benefit of cultivating to the 3rd layer was that the strength of the body increased by another 500 kilograms. A full-powered strike could reach the horrifying realm of 4,000 kilograms. On his right hand, after the Phoenix Eye, Laogong and Daling acupoints, the 4th acupoint, the Neguan acupoint, instantly opened. Following that, Xiaochen spent a day consolidating the foundations of the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. After that, he started to cultivate the inferior Great Earth-ranked fist technique, Great Dragon Tiger Fist. Martial techniques were different from cultivation techniques. They required a person's comprehension ability. Only by thinking and thinking could one comprehend the true essence of a martial technique and bring out its full might. The first move of the Great Dragon Tiger Fist was Ferocious Tiger Leaving the Mountains. Xiaochen had never seen a true ferocious tiger before. He could not understand the aura and movements of the ferocious tiger leaving the mountains. Hence, he felt that it was not smooth when he practiced it. Xiaochen thought about it. When he first came to this underground world, Xiaochen vaguely saw the rank 5 spirit beast Raging Flame Tiger in the depths of the forest. Xiaochen used the gravity spell to fly into the sky and began to search around. A loud whistling sound came from the sky. After rushing over, Xiaochen discovered to his surprise that it was a raging flame tiger hunting for food. A day passed and Xiaochen did not do anything. He only observed the raging flame tiger's every move from afar. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. In the blink of an eye, Xiaochen had stayed in this dense forest for an entire 7 days. Just like the first day, Xiaochen didn't do anything but observe the raging flame tiger's diet and every move. He was like a crazed demon, as though he had become a raging flame tiger. What great dragon tiger fist? What ferocious tiger descends the mountains? They were all forgotten. On this afternoon, Xiaochen, who had been crazed for a week, suddenly let out a long roar and leaped down from a large tree. He was like a huge tiger pouncing over, startling all the beasts and causing flocks of birds to soar up from the forest. Xiaochen punched through the air. Before his fist landed on the ground, the fierce wind from his fist had already blown away all the leaves on the ground. Leaves filled the sky and Xiaochen's figure finally landed. In the next moment, there was a loud boom, and a huge pit with a diameter of 20 meters appeared on the ground. Countless pieces of soil flew up, covering the sky like hail. Hoo! Just at this moment, a strong wind blew, and the rocks in the sky turned into dust with a gentle blow. It turned out that Xiaochen's punch was already close to the minute subtlety realm. The soil had already been destroyed from the inside. After being crazed for a week, he instantly comprehended the first move of this inferior Great Earth-ranked fist technique, Ferocious Tiger Descends the Mountains. Xiaochen had finally practiced it to great perfection. Xiaochen withdrew his fist and stood upright. His essence trembled slightly, shaking off the dust on his body. He revealed a joyful smile. The might of an inferior Great Earth-ranked martial technique was indeed extraordinary. After practicing this move, Xiaochen would have another true killing move in close combat, aside from sidestepping attacks. He would be able to bring out the advantage of his physical body. Underground world, natural herb field. Xiaochen hid himself in a dense bush and withdrew his aura. He stared at a bloodthirsty demonic ape 500 meters in front of him. The bloodthirsty demonic ape was a peak rank 5 spirit beast, equivalent to a peak martial saint. As a primate spirit beast, the bloodthirsty demonic ape's intelligence was much higher than most spirit beasts. With its horrifying strength and intelligence, the bloodthirsty demonic ape was hard to deal with. There was a blood lingji close to 300 years old behind it. It was a great tonic. A 300-year-old blood lingji was sufficient for Xiaochen to refine for a period of time. It should be able to increase his vital qi by 250 kilograms. It was hard for Xiaochen to not be tempted. The second move of the Great Dragon Tiger Fist, Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon, was a defensive martial technique. He could not comprehend it in a short time. Xiaochen put it aside for now and returned to his original plan of searching for spirit herbs that could increase qi and blood over 200 years old. A 300-year-old blood lingji was his first target. The bloodthirsty demonic ape, which was 5 meters tall, cautiously circled around the blood lingji. Its scarlet eyes were filled with a baleful aura as it stared at its surroundings. Under its strong aura, the rank 5 spirit beasts that wanted to take the blood lingji all avoided it. Xiaoqin had already stayed here for 2 days. He had personally seen a peak rank 4 silver-winged wolf torn in half by the bloodthirsty demonic ape's bare hands. The bloody scene was extremely cruel. After observing a few battles over the past 2 days, Xiaoqin had a rough understanding of the bloodthirsty demonic ape's strength. The bloodthirsty demonic ape's main attacks were its agility and the strength of its arms, which were close to 5,000 kilograms of force. Furthermore, its red fur was as hard as iron. Regular sabers would find it hard to break it. Xiaoqin calculated in his heart. If he only relied on the strength of his physical body, he would only have a 50% chance of victory. However, if he used various movement techniques and martial techniques as well as the purple thunder true fire, his chances would increase by 70%. Xiaoqin picked up a small clump of soil from the shrubs. With a thought, he executed the life bestowal spell. The loose soil gave off a spiritual light. After a while, it turned into a small bird flapping its wings as it flew out. With Xiaoqin's current cultivation realm, he could use the life bestowal spell to turn any object into a small animal. However, a true combat weapon still required an object with spiritual energy as a medium. The small bird circled around in the air and flew towards the blood lingji behind the bloodthirsty demonic ape. After it flew over the bloodthirsty demonic ape, it dived towards the blood lingji on the ground. The bloodthirsty demonic ape's face, which was very similar to a human's, opened its mouth and revealed a horrifying smile. It leaped up gently and turned into a scarlet light, grabbing at the small bird. Paw! The bloodthirsty demonic ape smacked the air with its palm. With a huge force, a faint ripple appeared in the air. However, the small bird seemed to have predicted this. It had already flown 5 meters into the air, dodging this palm strike. Xiaoqin smiled faintly. After 2 days of observation, he was very familiar with the height of the bloodthirsty demonic ape's light leap, the height of its forceful leap, and the height of its full-force leap. The small bird dodged continuously, thoroughly enraging the bloodthirsty demonic ape. It chased it all the way to the shrubs where Xiaoqin was hiding. Pah! Pah! The bloodthirsty demonic ape leaped with all its might, instantly rising 50 meters. Its speed reached its peak. There was only a flash of red light. The small bird could not dodge in time and was smashed into a pile of mush. Pussy. Just as the bloodthirsty demonic ape was satisfied and was about to land, Xiaoqin leaped out from the bushes. He roared like a tiger and pounced towards the bloodthirsty demonic moon. It was as though a tiger had appeared on his body. The timing of this punch was perfect. It happened to be the instant after the bloodthirsty demonic ape leaped with all its might and landed in midair. The bloodthirsty demonic ape had no way to push off in midair, so it could not dodge Xiaoqin's sudden punch. Bang! The bloodthirsty demonic ape's huge body was sent flying by this punch. The bloodthirsty demonic ape reacted very quickly. It somersaulted in midair and landed on all fours. After sliding back a few meters, it stabilized itself. ZZ. The bloodthirsty demonic ape's 4 limbs dug into the ground, creating deep marks and kicking up a cloud of dust. Xiaoqin did not think at all. He did not care whether the bloodthirsty demonic ape was injured or not, or how injured it was. The instant he punched, he chased after the bloodthirsty demonic ape. Shwa! The instant the bloodthirsty demonic ape landed on the ground, a human figure had already pierced through the cloud of dust. There was a whistling sound and the dust was blown away. Fists flashed as they punched at the bloodthirsty demonic ape. Bang! 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 The bloodthirsty demonic ape, which had already stabilized itself, moved its arms. It was so fast that it could not be seen. It blocked all the fists that Xiaoqin threw at it. 1 man and 1 beast carried out the most primitive battle in the empty space. There were no fancy martial techniques, only the flashing of fists. There were loud bangs and surging shockwaves. The 2 figures flickered continuously in the surroundings. They were so fast that only their shadows could be seen. Whoa! The bloodthirsty demonic ape roared ferociously. The huge red hand on its right arm released a scarlet light. In an instant its speed and strength doubled. Ferocious tiger leaving the mountains. Xiaoqin roared loudly and circulated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art in his body. All the bones in his body crackled and his strength increased by 20%, reaching 5,000 kilograms of force. The chi and blood in his body surged and burned. Xiaoqin turned into a ferocious tiger and clashed with the huge red hand of the bloodthirsty demonic ape without any fear. In the next moment, the fists clashed and gave off a loud sound. Both sides had a force of close to 10,000 kilograms. They exploded in the air. The sound of the explosion was like a sudden clap of thunder. The entire natural herb field trembled. If someone saw Xiaoqin competing with a spirit beast in terms of strength, they would definitely laugh at him for overestimating himself. Everyone knew that the physique of beasts was stronger than that of humans, be it in terms of recovery or strength. Different races naturally had different advantages. When dealing with these spirit beasts, which were known for their strength, most cultivators would use techniques to obtain victory. No one would be foolish enough to compete in strength. So. The figures of a few spirit beasts in the distance quickly rushed over. They stopped not far away and stared at Xiaoqin and the bloodthirsty demonic ape like tigers watching their prey. These spirit beasts were not foolish. They wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. When both sides were injured, they would take advantage of the situation and obtain the 300-year-old blood lingxi. After this strike, blood leaked out from the corner of Xiaoqin's mouth. He was knocked back 10 steps. With every step he took, he left a 4-meter-deep footprint on the ground. Chapter 204. The ground trembled continuously. As Xiaoqin retreated, he slowly dissipated the force of the bloodthirsty demonic ape's attack. Naturally, the bloodthirsty demonic ape did not know how to borrow force. The force of the inferior grade earth-ranked martial technique, fierce tiger leaving the mountains, completely entered its body. Even though the bloodthirsty demonic ape had tough skin and flesh, it could not withstand it. Blood poured out from all the pores on its body, dyeing its red fur even redder. It looks like I underestimated the might of the dragon and tiger body sculpting art and the great dragon tiger fist. Who knows, I might be able to defeat this bloodthirsty demonic ape with just the strength of my physical body, Xiaoqin thought to himself. Who? Two figures flashed. Xiaoqin and the bloodthirsty demonic ape moved at the same time. The bloodthirsty demonic ape seemed to go berserk. It raised its speed to its limits and turned into a red blur. Its 4 limbs were covered in a red glow. As it moved up and down, it punched and kicked. Xiaoqin did not dodge. The bones in his body gave off a pi-li-pa-la sound. The dragon and tiger body sculpting art circulated continuously. The qi and blood in his body burned to their limits like a huge furnace. Bang, bang, bang. One man and one beast clashed again. This time the battle was several times more intense than before. Every clash contained at least 5,000 kilograms of force. Thunderous explosions rang out endlessly, causing ripples in the air. More and more spirit beasts were attracted over and surrounded the area. The battle lasted for close to 2 hours. There was still no victor. Xiaoqin was covered in sweat. He felt very carefree and excited. He could not help but roar loudly. This was a true battle. A prolonged battle was an advantage for Xiaoqin. His body had been tempered by the 7-leaf flower. He had already been reborn. Furthermore, he had recently consumed countless herbs to increase his qi and blood. Furthermore, there was the inferior grade earth-ranked body strengthening art and the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. Xiaoqin seemed to have an inexhaustible amount of energy. He did not show any signs of exhaustion. Instead, his aura grew stronger. On the other hand, although the demonic bloodlust ape was slightly stronger than Xiaoqin, it could not take down Xiaoqin in one move. After fighting for 2 hours, the internal injuries it had inflicted on Xiaoqin had gradually accumulated to a dangerous level. However, his stamina was clearly unable to keep up. He couldn't wait for the moment when Xiaoqin's internal injuries backfired. When they clashed head-on, he was actually pushed back by Xiaoqin. For a time it was forced to retreat step by step. Xiaoqin's countless punches landed on its body. Die for me. With a kick, Xiaoqin sent the demonic bloodthirsty ape flying. With a loud shout, the 4 acupoints on his right arm, Phoenix Eye, Lao Gong, De Ling and Neguan, suddenly released 4 balls of green light, enveloping his entire arm. With a dragon's roar, the green light transformed into a blurry blue dragon, and gushed out from Xiaoqin's right arm. Before the bloodthirsty devil ape could get up, a blue dragon flashed and crashed into its body. Bang, 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 bang. 4 explosions rang out. The bloodthirsty devil ape's 5-meter-tall body was blasted into smithereens. Blood rained down from the sky. With a suction force, Xiaoqin grabbed the bloodthirsty devil ape's spirit core. Who? The instant the bloodthirsty devil ape died, the surrounding spirit beasts immediately charged at Xiaoqin. More than 100 spirit beasts pounced at Xiaoqin. A bunch of beasts. You want to sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight? How reckless. Xiaoqin smiled coldly and drew the heaven-ranked roaming dragon saber. Shua. A sharp saber chi flashed, and a rank 4 spirit beast in the air was directly chopped in half. These spirit beasts were mostly rank 4, and a few of them were early-stage rank 5. There were about 100 of them. After all, these high-ranked spirit beasts had their own spirit herbs. If they left now, the spirit herbs they were waiting for might be stolen by other spirit beasts. Furthermore, the truly strong spirit beasts would not be too interested in this blood lingji. All this while, Xiaoqin had been using the strength of his physical body. He had not exhausted much of the essence in the qi whirlpool in his body. Hence, although he had noticed the surrounding spirit beasts, he did not pay them much attention. Xiaoqin executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art and his figure turned into a roaming dragon. He soared up and down, leaving behind many dragon images. These spirit beasts could not even touch his clothes. Occasionally, the saber chi on the roaming dragon saber would be sent out, allowing Xiaoqin to kill these spirit beasts from a distance. Light flickered as the saber chi moved about. Occasionally, a spirit beast would be chopped in half. This was the might of a heaven-ranked spirit weapon. Wherever the light passed, no one dared to fight it. This allowed Xiaoqin to test out the saber chi that only a martial saint could execute. The saber chi of some early-stage inferior-grade martial saints were not as dense as Xiaoqin's saber chi. However, this essence exhausted a lot. Xiaoqin only felt better after consuming a chi-returning pill. Dang. Dang. A spirit beast with pitch-black skin that was as hard as steel actually managed to block a few saber chi. It roared as it charged at Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin smiled faintly and executed the roaming dragon's 9 transformations. He quickly turned into 9 figures in the air. His saber light was withdrawn as he sent out 9 clear wind chops. Instantly a cool breeze blew. Xiaoqin's black hair and clothes fluttered in the wind, making him look very elegant. When the 2 figures merged together, Xiaoqin's eyes lit up. The body of the spirit beast that had skin as hard as steel split into 9 pieces. A large amount of blood spurted out. Xiaoqin sent out a saber chi and easily chopped another rank 4 spirit beast pouncing at him in half. The essence on Xiaoqin's body trembled. Not a single drop of blood landed on Xiaoqin's clothes. Spirit beasts were afraid of death as well. After Xiaoqin killed most of them like he was chopping vegetables, the remaining immediately scattered like birds and beasts. The corner of Xiaoqin's lips curled up into a cold smile. He did not care about these scattered spirit beasts. He looked at the center of the herb field where the flowing light lamp was. On the other side he felt a sharp gaze that was filled with killing intent looking at him. It was the peak of the 6th rank spirit beast that was guarding the flowing light golden lamp. Xiaoqin's spiritual sense shot out like an arrow. He instantly saw the peak rank 6 spirit beast. It was a horrifying venomous snake. It had a body as big as a small car. When the snake coiled up, it looked like a small mountain. A cold light flashed in its eyes. It opened its huge mouth and its red forked tongue flicked in and out continuously. Behind it was a small tree about half a meter tall that gave off a flowing light. The leaves on the tree gave off a bright golden light. When the wind blew, the light overflowed. It was very dazzling. This should be the flowing light lamp. The flowing light flower would bloom only after 500 years. After another 500 years, it would bear the flowing light lamp fruit. It was a natural treasure close to immortal grade. Xiaoqin recognized this venomous snake. It was a rank 6 spirit beast, the scarlet crown snake. Based on its huge body, it had probably lived for hundreds of years. The killing chi in its eyes slowly disappeared. Xiaoqin heaved a sigh of relief. It looked like the scarlet crown snake would not leave the flowing light lamp so easily. The scarlet crown snake's gaze seemed to be a deterrent. It saw that Xiaoqin frequently entered this herb field and killed spirit beasts to obtain herbs. It was warning him not to have any ideas about the flowing light lamp. Xiaoqin could understand why the scarlet crown snake was so nervous. Compared to humans, spirit beasts had a natural advantage in terms of physique. However, they were lacking in intelligence. No matter how crafty a spirit beast was, it could not compare to humans. Thus, the importance of the flowing light flower went without saying. If it had the intelligence of a human, this scarlet crown snake might be able to become a spirit. Comprehension ability was naturally attractive to Xiaoqin. However, it was not worth risking his life for it. Xiaoqin did not have much interest in this flowing light lamp. Withdrawing his gaze, Xiaoqin took out the spirit core of the spirit beast on the ground. After that, he unhurriedly picked up the 300-year-old blood lingji. After doing all this, Xiaoqin immediately piloted the silver warship and left the herb field. He flew towards the towering tree. Xiaochen was not in a rush to consume the blood lingji. After he landed, he immediately circulated his energy to treat his injuries. The head-on clash with the bloodthirsty demonic ape had accumulated a lot of internal injuries in his body. If he did not deal with them in time, it would leave behind hidden injuries in the future, harming him for life. Pusi. After an hour, Xiaochen vomited a large mouthful of blood. The hidden injuries in his body had completely healed, eliminating any future problems. After a day of silence, Xiaochen did not do anything but recover his body. This was how battles of the physical body were. Injuring the enemy 1,000 times, injuring oneself 800 times. When 5,000 kilograms of force was used, at least 10% of it would be transmitted to the body. This was a common problem for cultivators of the physical body. In the past, Xiaochen was not clear on this. It was only because he saw it in the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. Unless his physical body reached the level of sage, this flaw was unavoidable. Now that he knew, he could not be careless. Of course, he could not leave behind any hidden injuries. Only on the second day did Xiaochen start to consume the blood lingji. The blood lingji was close to 300 years old. Xiaochen used an entire day to completely refine it. This made him slightly disappointed. This blood lingji, which he had high hopes for, only increased his strength by 200 kilograms. It looked like the further he went, the more difficult it would be to increase his strength by relying on external forces. Adding the 200 kilograms of force, Xiaochen's full power strike could reach a force of 5,500 kilograms. After he circulated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art, his strength could increase by another 20%. In the following half a month, Xiaochen searched for spirit herbs that were more than 100 years old to temper his physical body. His strength slowly increased. The third layer of the dragon and tiger body sculpting art had also completely stabilized. He slowly advanced to the fourth layer, dragon roar throughout the world, piercing the heavens. With the tempering of the 300-year-old spirit herbs, Xiaochen's full power strike reached 5,000 kilograms of force with much difficulty. Another 2 acupoints on his right arm opened up. There was a total of 18 acupoints on his right arm. A third of them were opened. The blurry blue dragon that Xiaochen sent out also slowly became plump. He could clearly see the scales on the dragon's body. It seemed to have a trace of life. On this particular day, Xiaochen strolled around the herb field, searching for spirit herbs that were more than 300 years old to increase qi in blood. He had come here too many times. He had already collected all the herbs that were used to increase qi in blood. Now, it was getting more and more difficult to find them. His spiritual sense was useless in this place. There were too many herbs, and it was not easy to use his spiritual sense to sort them. He could only walk and search with his eyes. Boom. Just at this moment, the surrounding spiritual energy fluctuated wildly. All of it rushed towards the center of the herb field. In that instant, the spiritual energy was so dense that it was like flowing water. Xiaochen turned his head to take a look. The flowing light marigold gave off a boundless golden light. It was resplendent and dazzling. The spiritual energy turned into a rainbow, covering the entire space. Chapter 205. A multicolored light descended from the sky, wrapping around the flowing light marigold. Multicolored light floated down from the sky like snowflakes. This was an auspicious sign. The pure spiritual energy in the surroundings contained even more essence than an inferior-grade spirit stone. The flowing light marigold actually blossomed, an auspicious sign from the heavens. This is actually an immortal-grade spirit herb, Xiaochen said as he looked at the multicolored light in the sky. I cannot waste this auspicious sign, I have to collect it. A large flock of birds flew over and swallowed the auspicious signs. In an instant, the sky was covered with the figures of flying spirit beasts. Xiaochen summoned out the silver warship and leaped onto it, joining the fighting army. Xiaochen took out a jade bottle and faced the multicolored light falling from the sky. He gently waved his hand and drew it into the jade bottle. Rumble. Suddenly, loud sounds came from the ground. Xiaochen looked down and discovered that the scarlet-crowned snake was being surrounded. 8 rank 6 spirit beasts were fighting the scarlet-crowned snake intensely. A rank 6 spirit beast was equivalent to a martial king. When 9 rank 6 spirit beasts fought, the scene was extremely chaotic. The loud sounds came one after another. Many hundred-year-old herbs were destroyed in large amounts. Even though it was 1 against 8, the scarlet-crowned snake was not at a disadvantage. It was evenly matched. When its mountain-like body moved, the entire ground trembled. These 9 spirit beasts also knew that their area of battle was too wide. They had a tacit understanding and avoided the flowing light marigold, fighting from a distance. On the flowing light marigold, a golden flower bud slowly blossomed. It gave off a bright light and the dense spiritual energy was like a mist, making everything hazy. Xiaochen looked at the 9 spirit beasts fighting in the distance. Then, he looked at the flowing light marigold blossoming on the flowing light marigold. His heart skipped a beat. It seems like this is an opportunity. If I am fast enough, I can descend from the sky and pluck the flowing light marigold before they can react. After that, I will quickly leave this place. After all, this herb field was becoming less attractive to me. It would not be a pity to leave. Hu Qi. Just as Xiaochen was thinking about this topic, a black dot was approaching from the horizon. It was flying towards him like a bolt of lightning. Its speed was as fast as a ribbon, leaving a long ray of light in the sky. It was a large blue bird with a wingspan of 10 meters. It tore through the air, bringing with it a violent airflow as it flew towards the flowing light marquee. What he was doing was exactly what Xiaochen was thinking. Xiaochen cursed in his heart. He was thinking too much. He should have just rushed forward. The big blue bird had already seized the initiative, and its speed was even faster than Xiaochen's. Even if he attacked with all his might, he wouldn't be able to catch up. He could only watch as the flowing light flower was snatched away by the strange bird. Bang! Just as the giant blue bird opened its mouth and was about to take away the flowing light flower, a gust of wind blew. The scarlet-crowned snake swept its tail across the sky and sent the big blue bird flying. Swish, swish, swish. The other 8 spirit beasts stopped attacking the scarlet-crowned snake and each of them attacked the blue bird. The blue bird that was struggling to escape in the air immediately fell to the ground. Paw! The scarlet-crowned snake's tail smacked down heavily, and the huge blue bird immediately turned into a bloody mess, turning into a pile of meat paste. Xiaochen was startled. When he saw the bloody corpse of the huge blue bird, he felt a chill run down his spine. These spirit beasts were not stupid. They knew that there would be other spirit beasts taking advantage of their fight to snatch away the flowing light flower. If other spirit beasts came to snatch the flowing light flower, they would stop fighting and attack together. The combined attack of 9 rank 6 spirit beasts was unstoppable in this underground world. Xiaochen's back broke out in a cold sweat. If it were not for this anxious bird, he would be the one lying on the ground. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiaochen focused all his attention on the 5-colored auspicious signs in the sky. In the blink of an eye, most of the auspicious signs in the sky had been devoured. Xiaochen quickly piloted the silver warship and turned it into a silver bolt of lightning, collecting the 5-colored auspicious signs in all directions. However, it could not compare to the dense flock of birds. There were simply too many of them. Xiaochen only managed to collect 20 auspicious signs before the rest were all devoured. Xiaochen shook his head and closed the jade bottle. He glanced at the 9 spirit beasts fighting non-stop before leaving this place. After finding a quiet place, Xiaochen took out the jade bottle containing the auspicious signs. He revealed a faint smile on his face. Although the essence contained in the auspicious signs was not as much as a medial grade spirit stone, it was what Xiaochen needed urgently. The essence contained in a medial grade spirit stone was very vast. However, one could only use it after advancing to medial grade martial saint. Otherwise, the essence would cause one's body to explode. As for the essence contained in the auspicious signs, although it was much weaker than a medial grade spirit stone, it was very gentle. Cultivators of any cultivation realm could directly absorb it without worrying about their body exploding. Even an inferior grade martial disciple could directly absorb this energy, which far exceeded what their body could handle. If Xiaochen took these 20 auspicious signs to the market, they would be worth 2,000 inferior grade spirit stones. Right now, Xiaochen lacked everything except spirit stones. Naturally, he would not use them to exchange for spirit stones. Xiaochen sat down cross-legged and opened the jade bottle containing the auspicious signs. He slowly circulated the purple thunder divine incantation. The 5-colored auspicious signs slowly floated out and entered Xiaochen's nostrils. Streams of gentle and majestic pure essence flowed into Xiaochen's meridians. The qi whirlpool in his dantian spun quickly, absorbing all this essence. The speed at which the qi whirlpool absorbed essence was much faster than what Xiaochen had done in the past. Soon, a drop of clear liquid essence dripped below his dantian. Dida, the qi whirlpool spun quickly. Drops of pure essence dripped continuously, transforming the spiritual energy in the 5-colored auspicious signs into his own energy. The essence contained in the 20 auspicious signs was equivalent to 5 medial grade spirit stones. After Xiaochen absorbed all of them, his energy reached a horrifying level. Furthermore, the most important thing was that there was no danger. This surging energy was extremely gentle. It was like a spring breeze as it infused into Xiaoqian's body. After 2 hours, Xiaoqian finally absorbed all of this energy. Xiaoqian opened his eyes. There was a purple glow in his eyes. It was as sharp as a solid object. When Xiaoqian got up and felt the surging energy in his body, he said ruefully, "I am finally a superior grade martial grandmaster. My cultivation realm is still a little low, but my energy is sufficient." If one wanted to advance to martial saint, aside from energy, one needed some comprehension. Their understanding of essence had to reach a corresponding level before they could use essence to injure others. After absorbing 20 auspicious signs, Xiaoqian's current strength was comparable to that of a regular inferior grade martial saint. He was only a step away from advancing to martial saint. Cassia. Xiaoqian drew the lunar shadow saber and a blazing saber light appeared. With a thought, Xiaoqian infused his essence into the saber in an endless stream. The saber light suddenly doubled in size, reaching 10 meters. Xiaoqian shook his head and casually waved his hand, scattering the essence on the saber. He said indifferently, "It is condensed but not solid. It is too gorgeous. There is no way to send out saber chi like this." Martial saint was the first hurdle of a cultivator. In this Jianghu continent, one could not be considered a true expert without becoming a martial saint. Some people would never be able to overcome this hurdle, spending their entire lives in mediocrity. The earlier one advanced to martial saint, the greater the potential one had. Otherwise it would be the opposite. Xiaoqian was almost 17 years old. To be able to advance to peak martial saint at this age, his talent would be considered at the peak of the great Qi nation. Of course, he had to exclude those proud sons of heaven with inherited martial spirits. However, in the context of the entire continent, this kind of talent was nothing much. I might not be a genius, but I have never slacked off. The so-called geniuses are just slightly better than me. Sooner or later, I will surpass those people, Xiaoqian thought to himself. Rumble. In the herb field in the distance, the battle of the 9 spirit beasts had not ended yet. Loud explosions resounded continuously. Even though Xiaoqian was standing far away, he could feel the fluctuations of spiritual energy in the air. Xiaoqian took a look and said, "It is time to leave this place. I have already collected all the spirit herbs that increase qi and blood in the herb field. If I do not return soon, elder sister Ryue and the others will be worried." Bang! Bang! Just as Xiaoqian was about to leave, there were 2 explosions that were even louder than before. The ground trembled continuously. Even Xiaoqian's body was shaking left and right. What a horrifying force. Has the victor been decided? Xiaoqian was horrified. Xiaoqian's spiritual sense shot out like an arrow. In the next moment, the situation there was clearly imprinted in Xiaoqian's mind. A poisonous fog spread out. The black poisonous qi was like black threads lingering around. The surrounding spirit herbs no longer had any signs of life under the black qi. Large patches of poisonous qi covered the herb field. Several 100-year-old herbs were all destroyed. Xiaoqian thought to himself, what a pity. Any one of these herbs would be worth tens of thousands of gold coins in the outside world. As Xiaoqian's spiritual sense moved through the fog, he saw the corpse of a rank 6 spirit beast. Its entire body was black and its head was separated from its body. As Xiaoqian continued to look, he saw the corpses of another 7 rank 6 spirit beasts. They all died in different ways, but their bodies were all black. They looked very scary. Xiaoqian thought to himself, this is a poison that even rank 6 spirit beasts cannot withstand. If I were to come in contact with this poisonous qi, I would probably die immediately. Book, book. The poisonous qi slowly scattered. The scarlet-crowned snake, which was the size of a small mountain, slowly slithered towards the flowing light marigold tree. When Xiaoqian looked carefully, he discovered that this scarlet-crowned snake was not completely unscathed. Its huge body was covered in wounds of varying depths. It was dripping with blood. Every time it took a step, blood spurted out and splashed on the ground. It was clear that although it defeated the other spirit beasts, it was severely injured. Xiaoqian thought quickly, thinking of all sorts of possibilities. If this scarlet-crowned snake is only as fast as it is now, then I should be able to dodge it with my blue dragon cloud soaring art. Xiaoqian stretched out his hand, and 5 ice ape sculptures appeared in his hand. There were still 5 ice apes. He should be able to delay for a while. These 5 ice apes were carved before Xiaoqian came to the underground world. He had not had a chance to use them. Perhaps they could be of great use at this moment. Even so, Xiaoqian still felt like he was fighting with himself. He hesitated. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Although this scarlet-crowned snake was severely injured, it was hard to guarantee that it did not have any trump cards up its sleeves. Chapter 206. If he made a decision now, he might not be able to leave this underground world for the rest of his life. He had no choice but to be cautious. The scarlet-crowned snake was getting closer and closer to the flowing light marigold tree. There was not much time left for Xiaoqin to think. I'll risk it. Xiaoqin made up his mind. The silver warship flew out from his right eye and enlarged. Xiaoqin pushed off with his feet and leaped onto the bow of the warship. Then he sped towards the flowing light marigold tree. Life bestowal spell. Bo, bo, bo. The 5 engravings in the air grew larger. When they landed, they were already the size of the rank 5 spirit beast, the ice ape. This was the first time Xiaoqin controlled 5 spirit beasts at the same time. The instant the spirit beasts formed, he felt a quarter of the surging essence in his body disappear. He also entered a momentary daze and felt a little dizzy. Looks like before the purple thunder divine incantation rises to the 4th layer, controlling 5 spirit beasts at the same time is too much, Xiaoqin thought to himself after calming himself. Without thinking, the 5 ice apes would not be able to stop the scarlet-crowned snake. After a while, Xiaoqin jumped off the warship and quickly descended towards the flowing light marigold tree. Oh, oh. The wind blew past his ears. Faster, 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 Xiaoqin kept saying in his heart. There had never been a moment where Xiaoqin felt that he would take so long to land. With a bang, an ice ape was directly swallowed by the scarlet-crowned snake. Shwa shwa shwa. With a flick of its tail, another 2 ice apes were crushed into a pile of sawdust by the scarlet-crowned snake's huge strength. There are still 3 more seconds before I can land, Xiaoqin thought anxiously. If he did not land before the ice ape was destroyed, he would become a live target in the air, unable to borrow any force. A rank 5 spirit beast was nothing in front of the scarlet-crowned snake. Even though it was severely injured, the scarlet-crowned snake could easily destroy an ice ape in one strike. The situation was extremely dangerous. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiaoqin made hand gestures and shouted, "Explode rank 5 ice ape." Boom boom. The 2 rank 5 ice apes frantically absorbed the surrounding ice-attributed spiritual energy. Specks of cold light appeared in the air as Xiaoqin spoke. Kacha kacha kacha. With 2 crisp sounds, it was as if the ice had been shattered. The temperature of the air suddenly dropped by a few hundred degrees. The 2 ice apes turned into cold stars, covering the ground with a layer of frost. The scarlet-crowned snake's huge body was instantly covered with frost chi. Its body that was like a small mountain turned into a cold ice mountain, not moving at all. The self-destruction of the 2 ice apes exhausted Xiaoqin's strength. Xiaoqin swallowed an essence chi pill and used this opportunity to land firmly on the ground. The glowing flowing light flower was as resplendent as gold. Now that it was right in front of him, the dense fragrance of the flower assaulted his nostrils. Immediately Xiaoqin felt refreshed and his nervous heart relaxed. If I'm going to play, I will play big. As he stood in front of the flowing light flower, Xiaoqin's ambition grew. 1 flowing light flower was nothing. If he could bring away the entire flowing light marigold, it would be worth it. Xiaoqin took out the lunar shadow saber from the universe ring. With a flash of saber light, he chopped the flowing light marigold in half. This was an immortal grade natural treasure. As long as it was not uprooted, it could grow again. The glow of the flowing light flower faded at a visible rate. Xiaoqin quickly placed the flowing light flower and the lunar shadow saber into the universe ring. Ka ka ka, the ice sealing the scarlet-crowned snake started to slowly shatter. Xiaoqin turned his head to take a look and saw a gust of strong wind blowing at him, causing his hair to flutter. He squinted his eyes slightly. Holy Beast Martial Spirit, Blue Dragon Dragon Chi Fengyan Acupoint, Laogong Acupoint, Daling Acupoint, Naguan Acupoint, open. A dangerous aura assaulted him. Xiaoqin did not have time to think. He faced the strong wind and shouted. The 6 acupoints on his right arm instantly opened. 6 rays of azure light appeared and turned into a blue dragon circling around Xiaoqin's arm. The feeling of boundless energy assaulted him once again. His entire right arm felt like it was going to explode. Bang! The blue dragon did not fly out. Instead, it clashed heavily with the snake tail. A huge force was transmitted, causing the chi and blood in Xiaoqin's body to churn. He flew backwards in the air. Under the full-powered attack of a peak martial king, Xiaoqin was able to retreat unscathed. Xiaoqin thought to himself, how lucky. He vomited a mouthful of blood and dispersed the churning chi and blood. Shwa. With a thought, a silver bolt of lightning quickly flew over and caught Xiaoqin, who was about to land. Xiaoqin stood on the bow of the warship. Before he could catch his breath, another strong wind blew. Another gust of wind blew. This time, the scarlet-crowned snake's huge tail was even faster than before. In an instant, it struck the silver warship. Under the huge force, Xiaochen was sent flying. He was like a sandbag in the air, flipping around continuously. He did not have the strength to retaliate at all. Kasi. The silver warship cracked continuously. After a while, it shattered into countless silver motes of light and flew into Xiaochen's right eye. The scarlet-crowned snake's attack had actually shattered Xiaochen's secret treasure. Xiaochen did not have the time to deal with the sudden turn of events. After he landed, the huge snake tail struck down continuously, causing the ground to tremble. Every step was filled with killing intent. It did not give Xiaochen any time to catch his breath. Xiaochen ran for his life. In the time it took for him to land, he covered tens of meters. The potential of his body was completely stimulated. Shockwaves surged behind him. There were a few times when the snake tail was already above his head, but he managed to dodge it by a hair's breadth. At this moment, Xiaochen forgot all about movement techniques, essence and martial techniques. There was no time for him to circulate his qi. He could only rely on his physical body to run for his life. The huge tail chased after Xiaochen and struck down continuously. The surging shockwave struck his back, nearly sending him flying a few times. However, Xiaochen managed to dodge it by a hair's breadth. This is not a solution. I do not even have time to circulate my qi. What should I do? Xiaochen ran frantically as he thought anxiously. Originally, Xiaochen thought that after he executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art, he would have no problem escaping. However, the current situation did not give him any chance to circulate his qi. If he paused for even a moment, he would be smashed into meat paste by the huge force. I can't keep running like this. I have to find an opportunity to catch my breath. Otherwise it will chase me to death. How should I find an opportunity? The scarlet-crowned snake was clearly in a berserk state. He had already used the blue dragon qi once. He could not use it again in a short period of time. With the strength of his physical body, he would not be able to fight against it. As Xiaochen ran forward quickly, he tried to think of a countermeasure. Since he could not clash head-on, could he make use of the force to retreat? After that, he executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art and the roaming dragon's 9 transformations, completely breaking away from the scarlet-crowned snake. Using his strength to escape was something Xiaochen had not learned before. He could only rely on himself to find the right opportunity. If he wanted to successfully use his strength, timing was the most important. If he could not find the right opportunity, he would be smashed to death by the scarlet-crowned snake. After dodging a few more attacks from the scarlet-crowned snake, Xiaochen carefully felt the direction of the wind, as well as the timing of the huge snake's tail. Rumble. The huge snake's tail smashed down, causing the ground to tremble. Then it quickly whipped up. Its upper body was already standing upright. A cold light flickered in its eyes. Its scarlet tongue flickered continuously as it watched Xiaochen dodge again. The scarlet-crowned snake hissed a few times in anger. It twisted its waist and its tail created a strong wind as it smashed down again. Xiaochen could feel the direction of the wind. Now was the time. He did not hesitate to turn around and lean to the right. Just as the huge snake tail was about to land, he smashed his palm against the side of the snake tail. Xiaochen did not use any force in this palm strike. He only slid his palm to the side of the snake's tail the instant he touched it. Hoo! Xiaochen's body immediately flew to the right. He felt joy in his heart. He succeeded. Although there was still a small portion of the snake's strength that was not completely dissipated, it was still very horrifying. However, it was already within the acceptable range. Xiaochen smiled gently and took advantage of the opportunity to execute the high-level technique of the blue dragon cloud soaring art, Cloud Dragon's 9 transformations. Instantly, 9 figures appeared in the sky. When the 9 figures merged together and landed, Xiaochen had already leaped a long distance. Pah! Pah! When the scarlet-crowned snake saw Xiaochen fling himself away, it slammed its huge tail on the ground. Its huge body soared into the air, covering the sky. It was not slow at all. Xiaochen turned his head around and saw a huge mouth above his head. Its red tongue was spitting out a cold light. The black hole looked like it was going to swallow Xiaochen up in the next moment. A faint smile appeared on Xiaochen's face as he stopped. He was not startled but happy. You chased me for so long. Now that you have delivered yourself to me, I will let you suffer a little. Purple thunder, true fire, shoot. A fierce flame burned in Xiaochen's right eye. After a while, it condensed into a fire dragon and shot towards the scarlet-crowned snake's mouth. Boom! The fire dragon instantly drilled into the scarlet-crowned snake. The huge body of the scarlet-crowned snake trembled and rolled on the ground. Xiaoqin ignored it. He took advantage of this opportunity and quickly headed for the exit of the underground world. He knew that such a small amount of fire would not be able to kill it. After an hour, Xiaoqin felt the exit of the underground world. When he arrived at the pitch-black hole, he did not hesitate and walked out with large strides. When Xiaoqin passed through the hole, the initial feeling of being in a trance attacked him again. This time Xiaoqin paid attention. He could clearly feel that feeling of being in a trance. It was like he had passed through a different world. When Xiaoqin turned his head around, he saw an inconceivable scene. There was no underground world behind him. It was pitch black and he could not see anything clearly. Xiaoqin was astonished. He was flabbergasted as he muttered, "How can this be? I clearly just came out from there. How did it disappear in an instant?" Xiaoqin could not believe what he saw. He rushed forward frantically. The pitch-black hole did not take him long before he bumped into the wall. Other than soil, there was nothing else. Could it be that everything I experienced in the past month was fake? Xiaoqin scratched his head and said in confusion, "Everything was just a dream." Xiaoqin took out the flowing light marigold from the universe ring. Only then did he slowly calm down. He still had his energy and the medial great spirit stones in his ring had not decreased. Chapter 207. This meant that that world definitely existed. Xiaoqin thought about it carefully. What was the difference between the first time he came here and now? There had to be a reason for the current situation. After a while, a light flashed in Xiaoqin's mind. He said, "When I first came here, there was no spiritual energy in my body. Now, my body is filled with spiritual energy. That is the biggest difference. That underground world should be a small world created by a senior. Only those who reached the sage realm and became one with the world could enter. Or perhaps only ordinary people without spiritual energy could enter. Furthermore, it was very likely that this was the small world created by the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's founding ancestor, the Saber Emperor. Now Xiaoqin had stumbled into it by chance. If he had not lost all his essence, if he had not been swept here by the underground river, he would not have been able to reach this place. There were many reasons for this. This was probably the so-called fortuitous encounter. Thinking about it, it was a pity. Originally, Xiaoqin was prepared to explore the entire underground world when he had the chance. It looked like he could not enter before he became a martial sage. Xiaoqin shook his head and recollected his thoughts. Since he had already come out, there was no need to think about this problem. What he had to think about now was how to return to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. When Xiaoqin arrived at the underground river, he slowly stopped at the riverbank where he had climbed up in a sorry state. Everything that had happened that day was still vivid in his mind. His essence had disappeared, his internal injuries were severe, his stamina was weak, and the undercurrents were all very dangerous. In the end he had encountered all of them. However, the conviction in his heart did not extinguish. He had climbed up in the end. He still had many important things to do. He could not die so early. He had not rescued Ao Jiao from the lunar shadow saber. He had not dealt with the noble clans in the Dongming province. He had not figured out why he was chased out of the Shao clan. There were too many enemies that he had not defeated yet. He had not even opened the door to becoming a cultivator. On the path of cultivation, it would be a pity if he died just like that. Looking at his reflection in the water, Xiaoqin thought of something. He had to change his appearance. Otherwise no one would recognize him. Xiaoqin's face suddenly turned blurry as soon as he used the shape-shifting technique. He recalled Yi Chen's appearance in his mind, and the bones in his face began to move rapidly. On the surface of the water, Yi Chen's rather ordinary face appeared. It completely changed Xiaoqin's sharp and unrestrained temperament. Xiaoqin looked at the surface of the water and smiled in satisfaction. He leaped up and stood on the surface of the water. He went against the current and walked on the waves. If he wanted to go back, there was no other way aside from going back. The only way Xiaoqin could think of was to return to the place where the Demon King was suppressed. Once he found Yi Wen, he would be able to leave. The tip of Xiaoqin's feet tapped lightly on the surface of the water as if he was running on flat ground. He dashed forward at an extremely fast speed. After a while, a mountain wall appeared in front of Xiaoqin, and the river under his feet flowed down from the mountain wall. Thump. Since the river could flow down, it meant that there was a path ahead. Xiaoqin stopped cultivating and dove to the bottom of the river. Then he swam against the undercurrent. After swimming for a long time, Xiaoqin felt the mountain wall above him disappear. He floated up again and walked on the surface of the water. After walking for a long time, he discovered that the river under his feet was just a tributary. The further he walked, the more astonished Xiaoqin was. There were many tributaries in this underground river. They were dense and wide. Along the way, Xiaochen had already come across more than 10 tributaries. Some places even had 4 tributaries. The water flowed downwards. Fortunately, there was only one main tributary upstream. As long as Xiaochen kept going upstream, he would eventually find the cave where the Demon King was suppressed. 2 days later, Xiaochen was in a river. Before he surfaced, he felt a familiar feeling. This was because the rotten smell of the dried corpse in the river had yet to dissipate. Have I finally found my way back? The moment Xiaochen surfaced, he saw Yiwen sitting at a wooden table on the shore, smiling at him. Xiaochen was slightly stunned. He did not expect to run into this person the moment he came up. He used his essence to disperse all the water droplets on his body. Immediately, hot air surrounded Xiaochen's body. Xiaochen stepped on the water surface and slowly walked out of the fog. When he arrived in front of Yiwen, the water vapor on his body had already evaporated. His clothes and hair were extremely dry. When Yiwen saw all this, a strange look flashed in his eyes. He poured a cup of wine and handed it to Xiaochen. He smiled faintly and said, "It looks like you had a fortuitous encounter. Not only did your cultivation not get crippled, it even improved greatly. I can no longer see through you." Xiaochen received the wine cup and drained it in one gulp. When he saw Yiwen, he originally thought he had a lot to say. However, when he saw Yiwen so calm, he did not know what to say. How is Biyun Peak Song K now? After thinking for a while, Xiaochen asked the question he was most concerned about. Yiwen drank by himself and drank another cup of wine. He said casually, "I crippled one of his arms, but he is still a peak master. However, don't worry, ancestral martial ancestor Shen already warned him. If you go out, he will not dare to cause trouble for you." "You crippled one of his arms?" Xiaochen looked at Yiwen in astonishment. It was not that he did not think Yiwen did not have the strength to do so. It was just that he did not expect Yiwen to offend a peak master for him. Furthermore, looking at Yiwen's calm manner, it was as though he did not care about it at all. It was as though this was a small matter and there was no need for him to care about it. Yiwen stood up and said, "Let's go, there is no need to make a fuss about nothing. I'll bring you out." Yiwen slowly put away the wine cups on the table. After he spoke, he took the lead and walked out. He looked at Xiaochen behind him and said, "You are really lucky. That girl, Lu Rua, even came down personally to look for you not long ago." "Elder sister Rua came to look for me?" Xiaochen was startled. He said, "Then what did you say to her? Did you tell her the truth?" "Am I stupid? Do you think I do not know her character? If I told her the truth, she would immediately go to Biyun Peak and risk her life," Yiwen said indifferently. Xiaochen was rendered speechless by Yiwen's words. Not long after, Yiwen asked again, "What is your relationship with Lung Liusu?" "Lung Liusu? There shouldn't be any relationship. I am not familiar with her," Xiaochen said suspiciously. He did not know why Yiwen would ask such a question. Yiwen said, "That is strange. She used her identity as the young pavilion master and went through the elders' assembly to send people to look for you a few times." Lung Liusu also came to look for him? Xiaochen could not understand what was going on. He wanted to ask Yiwen what was going on. However, when he saw Yiwen's expression, he swallowed his words. Yiwen brought Xiaochen along and led him to a small transportation formation. When the people guarding the formation saw Yiwen, they said respectfully, "Elder Yi, are you here to send someone off?" Yiwen nodded and said to Xiaochen, "Go up. Once you go up, you will be able to leave this damned place. I have already helped you settle your mission. Just go and hand it in." Before Xiaochen stepped onto the transportation formation, he turned around and asked, "Did you not pay any price for chopping off Song K's arm?" After all, Song K was a peak master. Xiaochen could not understand how Yiwen could be so calm. Yiwen smiled gently, "The price is that I have to stay in this place for another 10 years. Now that I see that you are so lively, I feel that it is not worth it." "Alright, stop speaking nonsense. Scram." "Pooh." Yiwen suddenly kicked out and kicked Xiaochen's butt. Xiaochen fell forward and landed in front of the transportation formation. A light appeared on the ground. Countless talisman scripts flashed and Xiaochen's body disappeared with a schwa sound. Everything was hazy and pitch black. Xiaochen felt that his body seemed to be stretched infinitely. After that, spots of light appeared. After a while, he regained control of his body. Where is this? Xiaochen looked at his surroundings and discovered that he was in a small room. There were no traces of formations on the floor. This should be a one-way transportation formation. Xiaochen gently pushed open the door and walked out. He happened to see the counter in the Hall of Contributions. When the old man behind the counter saw Xiaochen, he was mildly startled. The old man waved his hand and the wooden token at Xiaochen's waist quickly flew into his hand. It turned out that he had returned to the Hall of Contributions. The old man looked at the number on the wooden token and smiled gently at Xiaochen. Yichen, congratulations on completing your mission. These are your contribution points. The old man took out some black copper coins from under the counter and handed them to Xiaochen. After counting them, Yuan rated you as outstanding. There is a total of 1,000 contribution points. Xiaochen received the black copper coins. There was a total of 10 of them. They were completely black, round on the outside and square on the inside. They contained a strange aura that could not be faked. The old man continued to explain. Contribution points had a total of 3 colors. The white ones represented 1 contribution point, the red ones represented 1 contribution point, and the black ones represented 100 contribution points. Xiaochen had lived in the underground world for close to 2 months. At this moment he was in a rush to return to Qingyun Peak and report his safety to Lu Riyue. Hence, he did not have the patience to listen to the old man's words and prepared to leave. Wait a moment, don't leave yet. This is your first time completing a high-level mission. There is something I have to tell you, the old man called out to Xiaochen and walked out. The old man revealed a faint smile on his aged face. Young man, don't be too anxious. This matter is the best reward for you. Xiaochen did not understand. He slowly calmed down and followed the old man. The old man led Xiaochen to the back of the first floor of the Hall of Contributions. Along the way many people saw the old man personally leading the way for Xiaochen. They all started to guess Xiaochen's identity. The managing elder of the Hall of Contributions is actually personally leading the way for someone. Who is this person? I have never seen him before. Even the true inheritors do not receive such treatment. I have never seen him before either. What is his background? Could he be even more noble than the true inheritors? It's him. Look at the identity token on his waist. He is that disciple from Qingyun Peak. He is Yi Qin. Someone with sharp eyes in the crowd immediately said when he saw the silver identity token on Xiaochen's waist. Currently there were only 2 men in Qingyun Peak. One was Lu Suifeng and the other was Yi Qin. Everyone knew Lu Suifeng. Since he was not Lu Suifeng, then Yi Qin's identity was obvious. So, it really is him. He disappeared for 2 months and actually appeared again. The people from Wanren Peak have been searching for him for a long time. Chapter 208. I heard that the second strongest core disciple of Wanren Peak, Quicksaber Lin Feng, has already said that as long as he appears, he will look for him to settle the score. I saw a few Wanren Peak disciples leave earlier. They should be going to inform Lin Feng. There will be a good show to watch later. When Xiaochen heard all this he did not pay too much attention to it. As long as it was not a senior making a move, he was confident that he could deal with any core disciple of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The so-called hindrance was just to increase his combat experience. However, Xiaochen did not expect this old man's identity to be so deep. He was not as ordinary as he looked. The old man's expression was like an ancient well. There were no ripples at all. After they arrived at a large hall, he said indifferently, "We have arrived. This is the ranking hall. You can find your seat up there." The area of the large hall was very wide. There were 10 wooden walls in the middle. There was a group of people surrounding each wooden wall. They were either shaking their heads and sighing, or they had an impassioned expression. Everyone had a different expression. The old man brought Xiaochen to the wooden wall at the very back. When the crowd saw the old man, they immediately opened up a path. Xiaochen also discovered that the cultivators gathered in front of this wooden wall all had dispirited expressions. There is a total of 5,000 inner disciples in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The number has always been fixed. These 5,000 disciples are all ranked. The one you are looking at is the bottom 500 inner disciples. After the ranking war at the end of the year, the last 500 disciples will be stripped of their inner disciple status, the old man explained to Xiaochen. So that's how it is. No wonder the inner disciples gathered here all had ugly expressions. It turns out that the elimination system of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was so strict. Every year they would eliminate 500 disciples. Xiaochen looked at the wooden wall. There were 10 rows of wooden walls. Each row had 100 small wooden tablets. Every wooden tablet represented the identity of an inner disciple. On it was written the person's name, cultivation realm, peak and other basic information. Xiaochen looked around for a while and found his own wooden tablet. It was very eye-catching. It was ranked last in the 10th row. That was the last of the 5,000 inner disciples in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. On it was written, Qingyun Peaks Yi Qin Inferior Grade Martial Grand Master. The outer sect deacon of the Hall of Contributions took down the wooden plaque representing Xiao Chen. All the wooden plaques on the wooden wall started to move like a jigsaw puzzle. Everyone's name on the wooden wall started to move back by one rank. The old man held Xiao Chen's wooden tablet and walked to the wooden tablet in front. He placed Xiao Chen's wooden tablet in the 10th row. In an instant, Xiao Chen's rank rose by 500. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. They had never seen anyone raise their rank by 500 before. This isn't fair. I've been working so hard to complete the sect's missions and accumulate my strength. Yet, I can't even advance by 10 ranks in a month. How could he advance by 500? There was no change in the old man's expression. I Tian I, Sect Master I Tian Tian I Chin I and Chin I Chin and they. There was no change in the old man's expression. He slowly turned around and looked at the crowd. The noisy chatter immediately stopped. It was incomparably quiet. If you are in the bottom 500 and complete a high-level sect mission for the first time and obtain an outstanding evaluation, you can also break away from the bottom 500. Only now did the crowd remember that the ranking hall did have such a rule. However, they were not able to accept high-level missions. The ones they could accept were all extremely dangerous high-level missions. It would be very difficult for them to obtain an outstanding evaluation. Thus, for a very long time, no one in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion used such a method to raise their ranking. That was why everyone was excited. Xiao Chen did not care about all this. To him, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was just a relay station. After he learned listening to the sword and communicating with it, he would leave. He did not have any plans to stay here for long. The Jianghu continent was very big. Xiao Chen had set his sights on the entire continent long ago. Perhaps the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was a very strong power in the Great Qin nation. However, when compared to the entire continent or even the entire world, outside of the Jianghu continent was the boundless sea. After crossing the boundless sea, he heard that there were countless islands. There were also countless experts there. Thinking about it this way, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was nothing. Thus, Xiao Chen did not care much about his status as an inner disciple. Alright, I still have things to do, so I will take my leave first. As for the other rules, you will slowly come to understand them in the future, the old man said indifferently. After that, the old man gave Xiao Chen a meaningful look. He said, "Finally, I will give you some words of advice. Young man, don't be too sharp. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't set your sights too far. For the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to exist, it is not as simple as you think. The so-called geniuses are the cheapest things here. Don't keep your heart suspended in the air. Sink down and merge with it. Take a good look at this peak. It is far more exciting than you imagine." Xiao Chen revealed an extremely shocked expression. This old man had only taken a quick glance, and it seemed like he had seen through Xiao Chen's thoughts. The old man's words caused Xiao Chen to enter deep thought. Don't keep your heart suspended in the air. Sink down and merge with it. Is he saying that I am arrogant? Never mind, I will take a look first. Since I am already here, Xiao Chen did not intend to leave immediately. He strode forward and arrived at the first wooden wall. That was the ranking of the top 500 disciples of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. The wooden wall was the same as the other wooden walls. There were 10 rows of 50 people in each row. However, the background behind it was different. There was a faint layer of gold paint on it. It looked like a glory roll. However, being in the top 500 was also worthy of this glory. When one saw their name on it, they would feel proud. Survival of the fittest. This was a very good competitive system. It was able to retain the most outstanding talents. Not bad. Xiao Chen admired this ranking system. When he looked up, the first 10 names were as red as blood. They were very eye-catching among the black words. What made Xiao Chen feel strange was that these 10 people were not core disciples of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Chen did not know which peak they belonged to or what their cultivation realm was. There was only one name on the information board. The rest were all unknown. It was very mysterious. Could it be that the strongest disciples of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion are not the true inheritors? Xiao Chen thought to himself. He carefully counted to the back. He only saw the first true inheritor's name after 50. The true inheritor of Wanren Peak, Wang Qinian, was an inferior grade martial saint. Unexpectedly, he was only in the 50s. After thinking for a while, Xiao Chen decided to look at the ranking of the so-called quick saber Lin Feng. As he continued looking down, Xiao Chen saw Lin Feng's name in the 3rd row. Wanren Peak core disciple, superior grade martial saint. Wanren Peak's 2nd strongest core disciple, but he was only in the 100th rank. How exactly is the ranking on the wooden board divided? Why does it feel like it is not accurate? Xiao Qin started to doubt himself. Yi Qin. Just as Xiao Qin was deep in thought, someone called out his name from behind. When he turned his head to look, he discovered it was Ma Chen, who had gone to the spirit mine with him on a mission. When Ma Chen saw Xiao Qin turn around, he quickly walked over. He said in pleasant surprise, "It really is you. Junior brother Yi Qin, I have not seen you for a month. I thought something happened to you." When Xiao Qin saw this, he felt somewhat apologetic. He explained that he had no choice but to knock him out. He did not have any malicious intent. Ma Chen waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say it, I understand. Speaking of which, your background is not small. Even the young pavilion master personally sent people to look for you." Xiao Qin felt it was strange, so he asked, "You know about this as well? Does anyone else know?" Ma Chen shook his head and said, "There should not be anyone else who knows. I only came up half a month ago. I do not know what happened in the spirit mine. It has been under lockdown for a long time." The two of them chatted for a while. Xiao Qin understood a little about what happened after he left from Ma Chen. The things that happened in the spirit mine were not spread out. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion was as peaceful as it was in the past. No one outside knew that the shocking change that happened a month ago could turn into something that could threaten the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. Xiao Qin remembered that Ma Chen had been here longer than him. He should know what was going on with the ranking. So he asked about his doubts. Ma Chen smiled and said, "This is very normal. The true inheritors of the 7 peaks are all passed down by the bloodline of the peak master. It is not a matter of talent. Sometimes, a true inheritor is not even as strong as an ordinary inner disciple." Xiao Qin was astonished. Would anyone be willing to become a peak master? If a peak master was not even as strong as a core elder, it was hard for Xiao Qin to imagine how such a person would be able to manage such a large peak. They would not. After all, such people are the minority. Furthermore, every peak has their own methods of passing down their cultivation. Before the old peak master died, he could pass down his cultivation to his descendants. Ma Chen continued to explain. As for the top 10 people, they are the strongest 10. They spend most of their time training outside and rarely return. So it is normal that we do not know their cultivation. I have seen the ranking competition at the end of last year. These 10 people are very strong, they definitely live up to their reputation. A few of them are able to defeat opponents of a higher cultivation realm. Furthermore, their cultivation methods are different from the orthodox inner disciples. They are all aiming for the divine saber camp. So that was the case. No wonder the old man told Xiao Qin that geniuses were the cheapest thing in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. If the top 20 were all the people that Ma Chen mentioned, then the old man's words were not exaggerated. What kind of genius could be more talented than someone who could defeat opponents of a higher cultivation realm? After Ma Chen answered Xiao Chen's question, he told him about the changes in the rankings. Aside from doing some refinement missions, one could also challenge an opponent in the same row as them. That was to say, one could challenge an inner disciple who was ranked 49 above them. Everyone had a chance to challenge them once a month. The person being challenged could choose not to accept the challenge. However, on the 15th of every month, if someone challenged you, you had to accept the challenge. Otherwise, you would automatically forfeit and be automatically defeated. Of course, the most crucial thing was the ranking competition at the end of the year. At that time, the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion would engage in a grand battle among the inner disciples. The points obtained in the battle were the most important factors in determining one's ranking. Of course, one's previous ranking was also very important. The points obtained were the same. However, if one's ranking was too far behind, it would be useless. Chapter 209. Ma Chen's explanation was very detailed. Xiao Qin understood the moment he heard it. Now, he somewhat understood the meaning of the old man's words. The so-called sink in and blend in should be for him to participate in this competitive game. Xiao Qin thought for a while, I can accept other people's challenges. However, I will not take the initiative to challenge myself. I do not have the time. After all, I am no longer in the bottom 500. As long as I hold my ground, I will not have to worry about being kicked out of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion at the end of the year. It was getting late. Xiao Qin was in a rush to return to Qingyan Peak. He did not continue chatting with Ma Chen. After he took his leave, he immediately left the Hall of Contributions. The heaven viewing platform was as bustling as when he arrived. It was bustling with activity. There was a huge flow of people. Just as Xiao Qin stepped out of the Hall of Contributions, he felt a few killing chi directed at him. He could not help but stop. On the path leading to the Hall of Contributions, a group of people slowly walked over. They were wearing the uniform of Wanren Peak. Their faces were covered in frost and their gazes were cold. When they were 10 meters in front of Xiaoqian, they stopped. Xiaoqian saw Yang Qi's figure in the crowd. He looked at Xiaoqian coldly and whispered something into the ear of a person beside him. That person had a squarish face. He looked very ordinary. However, a bright light flashed in his eyes occasionally, causing people to tremble in fear. He was an inferior grade martial saint. There is indeed a good show to watch. That is Xuanhuan Peak's quick saber master Lin Feng. He is ranked 106th on the Heavenly Saber Pavilion strength ranking list. He is the second-ranked core disciple of Xuanhuan Peak. He already said that he wanted to help Yang Qi get back at him. Looks like this Yi Qin will not be able to escape easily today. It is hard to say. Since Yi Qin could defeat Yang Qi that day, he might be able to defeat Lin Feng today. Furthermore, Yi Qin is now a superior grade martial grand master. I think their top core disciple Luo Kadi will have to come. If what you said was 2 months ago, it might be possible. However, Lin Feng is now an inferior grade martial saint. Martial saint and martial grand master are two completely different realms. The difference is too great. 2 months ago Yi Qin might not have stood a chance. Lin Feng is known as the #1 swift saber of Xuanhuan Peak, and his reputation is not undeserved. At most, he would have lost slightly more elegantly. Now, I reckon that Yi Qin would not be able to block even one move. Lin Feng's appearance had immediately attracted the attention of all the elite disciples who were surrounding the achievement palace. They all wanted to see what was going on. Xiaoqian's facial expression didn't change. His heart was as calm as still water. There wasn't a single ripple in his heart. He was looking at Lin Feng without the slightest fear. Lin Feng took a few steps forwards and arrived in front of Xiaoqian. He then said in an ice-cold tone, 2 months ago, were you the one who injured many of my disciples? That's right, Xiaoqian said calmly. Lin Feng slowly put his right hand on the hilt of his blade. His qi was unceasingly condensing. He was fixedly staring at Xiaoqian and said, I will give you a chance to explain yourself. If I am not satisfied with your explanation, I will make them suffer 10 times over. There's no need to explain when your skills are inferior. As Xiaoqian spoke, he took a step forward without anyone noticing. Gotcha. When Xiaoqian finished speaking, Lin Feng unsheathed his long blade. A cold light appeared. The crowd could only see a blurry shadow of the blade. They couldn't even see the blade clearly. Bang. However, something unexpected happened. Originally, they thought that Xiaoqian would be struck by the lightning-fast blade and his blood would flow like a river. He would be defeated immediately. But the reality was that Lin Feng vomited a mouthful of blood. A crisp sound could be heard from his chest and he fell to the ground. The long blade in his hand swayed and flew out of his hand. Xiaoqian immediately stomped on Lin Feng, who was struggling to stand up. Then he stomped heavily on Lin Feng, who was struggling to stand up. There was another crunching sound as a few more of Lin Feng's ribs broke. Lin Feng groaned in pain. He pointed his finger at Xiaoqian and said unwillingly, You? The situation had suddenly changed. Lin Feng, who was originally aggressive, was knocked down by Xiaoqian with one punch. The crowd could not even react to what was going on. Everything was too unimaginable. In their eyes, Lin Feng had obviously attacked first. Furthermore, his speed was so fast that the naked eye could not see it. But why was he the first to be hit? Xiaoqian quickly let go of him. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. When Yang Qi saw Lin Feng fall to the ground, he became very anxious. He quickly led the other core disciples of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak and surrounded Xiaoqian. Xiaoqian smiled indifferently. He hooked his right foot and kicked Lin Feng's body away like a sandbag. Yang Qi hurriedly stretched out his hand to catch Lin Feng. However, the strength behind Lin Feng's kick was far beyond his imagination. After the people of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak caught Lin Feng, Xiaoqian had already used the blue dragon cloud soaring technique and disappeared without a trace. In a distant pavilion, 2 young disciples wearing the uniform of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak were quietly watching the scene in the Hall of Contributions. One of them shook his head and said, Junior brother Lin lost too unjustly. If he did not give that person a chance to speak and went up, he would have executed the startling wind saber technique. With his current cultivation level, he would have defeated that person in 10 moves. The other person smiled indifferently. A loss is a loss. There is nothing much to say. Lin Feng is a proud person. It is good for him to suffer some setbacks. Junior brother Luo, what do you think of Yi Qin? So these 2 people were the true inheritor of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak, Wang Qinian, and the #1 core disciple of the 10,000 Fathoms Peak, Luo Kadi. Luo Kadi thought for a while and said, rational, calm and good at grasping his opponent's weakness. The strength of his physical body is extremely terrifying. That punch earlier should have contained 4,000 kilograms of force. However, the strength of his physical body is mediocre. The higher his cultivation level, the smaller the advantage he has. He is not a match for us, so there is no need to worry too much about it. Wang Qinian smiled gently and said, "This person is much stronger than we imagined. If you fought with him, you would only have a 50% chance of winning if you did not use your best moves." "Why do you say that?" Wang Qinian said indifferently, "You only paid attention to the speed and strength of his punch. You did not see anything else. That is where he is brilliant." When he answered Lin Feng's question, he took 2 steps forward. This distance was the furthest the tip of Lin Feng's saber could reach after he drew it. Furthermore, he did not attack after he finished speaking. He used sound and speed to create an illusion. It gave people the impression that after he spoke, he and Lin Feng attacked at the same time. Actually, he had already attacked when he said the last 2 words. As for Lin Feng, he only attacked after he heard the sound. Therefore, it is not that Yi Qin is faster than Lin Feng but that he attacked first. Luo Kadi felt that his mind was in a mess. After thinking carefully for a while, he revealed a doubtful expression and said, "That is impossible. How can the speed of sound be faster than what the naked eye can see? No matter how fast he is, even if he surpasses the speed of sound, it is impossible for him to surpass the speed of light. What the naked eye can see is that he attacked first." These words were very tongue-twisting and could easily make people dizzy. Actually, it was not difficult to explain. Within a short distance, when a person made a punching motion, the sound and movement would definitely be heard at the same time. However, if this person's speed surpassed the speed of sound, people would see an extremely strange scene. The opponent would only be able to hear the sound slowly after he was sent flying far away. The faster you were, the slower it would be for others to hear the sound. However, no matter what, your actions would be seen immediately. Hence, Luo Kadi felt that Wang Qinian's words were contradictory. How could Xiao Qin go against common sense and let others hear the sound first before seeing the action? Wang Qinian smiled faintly and said, "The sound you heard might not have come from his mouth? You mean?" His voice was transmitted into people's ears using other methods. Luo Kadi seemed to have understood something as he looked at Wang Qinian in shock. Wang Qinian nodded and said, "That's right. However, it was not transmitted into the ears but directly into the brain. This is because when he said the last 2 words, his lips did not move at all. This is a kind of use of soul energy. I once saw an expert using soul energy in the ancient desolate land. That person was even more powerful than Yi Qin. Not only could he imitate sounds, he could even imprint images into the mind of others." Heavenly Saber Pavilion, Qingyun Peak. Xiao Qin looked at the familiar peak and could not help but sigh in his heart. It had only been 2 months since he last came, but he actually started to miss it. Looking into the distance, there was a group of people standing at the foot of the mountain looking into the distance. Xiao Qin's vision was very good. He discovered Lu Riyue, Xiaoyang and Xiaomeng standing there. "Brother Yi, you are finally back." When Lu Suifeng saw Xiao Qin, he went forward and hammered Xiao Qin. "Big brother Yi, are you all right?" Xiaoyang and Xiaomeng welcomed him with smiles. Xiao Qin greeted them one by one. When he saw everyone's enthusiastic expressions, he felt a warmth in his heart. Lu Riyue revealed a faint smile on her charming face. She stood quietly at the side. After consuming the beauty-nourishing pill that Xiao Qin gave her, she looked even more beautiful than before. No one dared to look her in the eye. Lu Riyue's aura was withdrawn. Compared to the past, it was less sharp. However, it was even more unfathomable. After absorbing the essence of heaven and earth that Ao Jiao gave her, she was only a step away from Martial King. "Elder sister Riyue, I made you worry?" Xiao Qin walked over and said sincerely. Lu Riyue had personally gone down to the mine for him. No matter what, he had to thank her. Lu Riyue carefully sized up Xiao Qin. After a while, a strange look flashed in her eyes. She asked, "Are you a superior grade martial grand master?" When Lu Suifeng heard this, he could not help but be startled. He carefully sized up Xiao Qin. He felt that his aura was flourishing and he could not see through him. Before Xiao Qin went to do the mission, he was only a peak inferior grade martial grand master. In just 2 months, he had become a superior grade martial grand master. This speed was not inferior to a cultivator with an inherited heavenly vein martial spirit. When Lu Riyue saw Xiao Qin nod his head in acknowledgement, she said, "That's great. In half a month, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion will be holding the core disciple exam. It looks like you will be able to make it in time. Rest for a while first. Tomorrow I will officially teach you listening to the sword and communicating with it. After Lu Ryue spoke, she turned around and left. She did not ask much about what happened to Xiaoqin underground. Xiaoqin also heaved a sigh of relief. It would be troublesome to explain his fortuitous encounter in the underground. If Lu Ryue asked, he would not know how to answer. Chapter 210. Who? A white figure quickly rushed to the foot of the mountain peak. When Xiaoqin looked carefully, he could not help but reveal a faint smile on his face. The white figure was Bai. This little fellow was very playful. After it left with Xiaomeng, it rarely returned. It ran all over Qingyun Peak. Xiaoqin knew that it liked to stay in the forest. Furthermore, the mission was dangerous, so he left it behind. When Bai saw Xiaoqian's figure, it was very excited. Its snow-white fur gave off a faint glow under the sunlight. Its body swayed as it pounced over. Pu Tong. Originally, Bai wanted to jump onto Xiaoqian's body. However, when it was only half a meter away from Xiaoqin, it fell with a Pu Tong sound. After it got up, it was still in a daze. Its little head shook left and right. It did not understand what was going on. Xiaoqin was greatly astonished. He walked forward and picked it up. Instantly, the fragrance of wine wafted over. He could not help but say in astonishment, "What a strong wine smell! Could it be that it drank wine?" Xiaoming walked over awkwardly and said, "Elder brother Yichen, after you left, Bai accidentally drank Xiao Yang's wine. After that, it became addicted to it. It often gets drunk. No matter where the wine is hidden, its nose can smell it." Xiao Yang also walked over and said embarrassedly, "Elder brother Yichen, I am really sorry. I was already very wary of it. However, its nose is too sensitive. I don't even dare to drink anymore. It even ran to the top of the mountain to ask for wine from the elders." Xiaoqin sweated in his heart. It really drank wine. Furthermore, it got drunk. After not seeing it for 2 months, Bai actually developed such a bad habit. Never mind, I will keep an eye on it for the next 2 days. Furthermore, drinking wine is not a bad thing. Xiaoqin could only blame Bai for being mischievous. Furthermore, a rank 6 spirit beast was equivalent to a martial king. Xiao Yang and Xiao Meng were just ordinary people. It was normal for them to not be able to keep an eye on it. Bai seemed to know that it had made a mistake. It drooped its ears and did not dare to move around in Xiaoqian's embrace. Xiaoqin smiled helplessly and placed it in the spirit blood jade. Seeing Lu Suifeng at the side, Xiaoqin thought of something. He took out 5 black contribution coins and handed them to Lu Suifeng. "Suifeng, when you go to Jade Maiden Peak tomorrow, help me return them to Martial Granduncle Shen." Lu Suifeng waved his hand and did not take the contribution coins that Xiaoqin handed over. He smiled and said, "My sister already helped you repay the debt you owe the Hall of Contributions. She knew that you owed the Hall of Contributions because you wanted to refine the beauty-nourishing pill. She even scolded me." Xiaoqin put away the contribution coins. As he watched Lu Ryue disappear into the mountain peak, his gratitude towards her increased. At night, stars filled the sky and the moon hung high in the branches. Xiaoqin went to his own courtyard and took out the flowing light marigold tree, which gave off a golden light. The flowing light marigold on the treetop gave off a dense fragrance. Its spiritual energy was overwhelming. The flowing light marigold had a total of 5 petals. There was not much difference between eating 1 and eating 5. Everyone only had 1 chance to increase their comprehension ability. How much they could increase actually depended on luck. Who knew, after eating it, they might be able to open up their spiritual acupoints and obtain a photographic memory. They might even be able to learn any martial technique after seeing it once. Although everything was possible, the flowing light marigold was an immortal grade spirit herb. After consuming it, it could increase a cultivator's comprehension ability by at least 20%. The effects were very obvious. Of the 5 petals, he would eat 1 and find an opportunity to give the other 2 to Lu Ryue and her brother. Xiao Yang and his brother did not have martial spirits, so they would not be considered. As for the remaining 2, Xiaoqin could give 1 to Bai. As for the last one, he would give it to cousin Yulan. In the future, when they met again, he would give it to her. After allocating the 5 petals of the flowing light marigold in his heart, Xiaoqin plucked a golden petal and placed it in his mouth, chewing it gently. A dense and refreshing fragrance filled his entire mouth. The petal turned into an ice-cold liquid and flowed into the meridians of his body. After a while, it permeated into all the pores of Xiaoqian's body. An indescribable carefree feeling spread throughout his body, making him feel carefree and relaxed. Xiaoqin closed his eyes and immersed himself in this comfortable feeling, forgetting himself. After a while, his mind seemed to explode. Countless information poured in. Battle Sage Origins, Changing Character Formula, Clear Wind Chop, dragon seizing hand, blue dragon cloud soaring art, flight on wings, rushing thunder chop, all the martial techniques that Xiao Qin had learned appeared in his mind. Some of the problems that he could not figure out in the past suddenly became clear. He was suddenly enlightened. Xiao Qin's thoughts were incomparably clear. He was able to draw inferences about other things from one instance. The changes of the various martial techniques in battle were all sorted out. Xiao Qin opened his eyes. His eyes were clear like an ancient well, deep and tranquil, making it hard for others to understand. Clear wind chop, blue dragon tail whip. Xiao Qin shouted and a cool breeze blew in the courtyard. The leaves on the ground were picked up by the cool breeze, dancing in the air continuously, making schwa 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 sounds. The high-level technique of the blue dragon cloud soaring art, blue dragon tail whip, was executed at the same time as the secret technique of Qingyun Peak, the clear wind chop. Xiao Qin's figure moved in an elegant arc in the air. Something strange happened. Xiao Qin, who was hidden in the cool breeze, suddenly disappeared. The saber light and the human figure disappeared in an instant. Nothing could be seen. Only the cool breeze and the rustling of leaves remained in the huge courtyard. It was incomparably quiet. Xiao Qin landed in front of Xiao Qin. The lunar shadow saber in his hand returned to its scabbard with a huang dang sound. He revealed a joyful expression. I have finally practiced the clear wind chop to great perfection. Right after Xiao Qin spoke, the cool breeze behind him suddenly stopped. The leaves in the air rustled and fell. Every leaf was divided into 2 into 4 into 8, and then into countless fragments. Xiao Qin was not sure how much his comprehension ability had increased. However, he felt that compared to before, his comprehension ability had increased by at least 50%, which was half. After Xiao Qin consumed the flowing light flower, he immediately comprehended the clear wind chop, which was only one step away from the spirit gate. He even managed to combine it with the blue dragon cloud soaring art. Xiao Qin raised the clear wind chop to an unimaginable level. Not only did it reach the state where one could only see the cool breeze but not the saber, even one's figure was hidden in the wind. Even Lu Riyue and Yi Wen had not reached such a state. As for whether there was anyone else in history who had reached such a state, Xiao Qin did not know. While he was in a daze, Xiao Qin felt that he was in a very strange state. His mind was very agile. This did not seem to be a simple increase in comprehension ability. Rather, it was a state that could only be encountered and not sought. It was similar to the comprehension he had in Evil Wind Valley. At this moment, he felt that no matter what martial technique he practiced, he would be able to make a breakthrough immediately. This feeling was very miraculous. It could only be sensed but not described. It should be a strange effect brought about by the flowing light flower. Xiao Qin felt that the duration of this state was decreasing rapidly. After a period of time, it would definitely disappear. Xiao Qin's thoughts raced. This opportunity would not come again. What he needed to consider now was which martial technique he should upgrade in this limited time. Rushing Thunder Chop? No way, I have already comprehended the Rushing Thunder Chop to a very high level. Furthermore, I am very familiar with it. Even if I do not have this opportunity, a breakthrough in the future is just around the corner. Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art? No way, this is a movement technique. I have already practiced it to small perfection. If I want to raise it to medial perfection, I will have to rely on my own cultivation. After I become a martial saint, I should be able to reach medial perfection. Battle Sage Origins Changing Character Formula? No way, this cultivation technique is too strange. Until now, I have only comprehended a small portion of it. I should need a fortuitous encounter to make a breakthrough. If I use this opportunity on this, it would be too unfortunate if I fail. Sword technique Flight on Wings? This is even worse. This is a martial technique imitated by the changing character formula. I have not practiced it before, it is not worth it. Time was tight, Xiao Qin thought about it but he did not know how to make a decision. Suddenly he thought of a martial technique, Great Dragon Tiger Fist. He revealed a smile and said, I will practice the Great Dragon Tiger Fist. I have no idea what the second move, Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon, is. Furthermore, this cultivation technique has great potential. If I can make use of this opportunity to comprehend it, my combat prowess will immediately increase. After he made up his mind, Xiao Qin stabbed the lunar shadow saber into the ground with the scabbard. He circulated his energy and got into a stance, starting to practice the Great Dragon Tiger Fist. A ferocious tiger image appeared behind Xiao Qin. His entire body was like a ferocious tiger. His chi and blood burned, the king of beasts descending. The king's aura of 100 beasts surged out into the surroundings from Xiao Qin's body. Xiao Qin let out a long roar, it was deafening like rolling thunder. A small tree in the courtyard broke with a cautious sound from this roar. Ferocious tiger leaving the mountains. Xiaoqin bent his body and took a heavy step forward with his right foot. His entire body flew forward and punched out ferociously. The tiger image behind him let out another long roar. Xiaoqin felt an explosive force in his right hand. When he punched the air, it gave off a resounding explosion. The air was blasted apart by this punch and ripples spread out. Dust particles that could not be seen by the naked eye kept exploding in the air. Xiaoqin rejoiced in his heart. I did not expect that under such a wondrous state, the might of my ferocious tiger leaving the mountains punch would increase significantly. After this punch, Xiaoqin circulated his energy for the next crouching tiger hidden dragon fist. Immediately, some strange information appeared in his mind. It was unknown where this information came from, but it suddenly imprinted itself in Xiaoqin's mind. It was all an explanation of the crouching tiger hidden dragon. Xiaoqin closed his eyes and did his best to absorb this information. After a while he opened his eyes. A strange light flashed in his unchanging eyes. So, this was the meaning of the crouching tiger hidden dragon. The second move of the great dragon tiger fist was not used for offense. Instead, it was an extremely strong and firm defensive move. It required the practitioner to materialize the aura of a dragon and tiger. With the dragon and tiger on the body, one's aura would be withdrawn and would not be able to unleash it. With the strength of the dragon and tiger, one would be able to withstand the 5 mountains and rivers. At the same time, it would store up energy for the next move, the dragon hissing tiger roar. If Xiaoqin did not practice this move to great perfection, he would never be able to practice the next move. His left hand turned into a dragon, piercing through the sky. His right hand turned into a tiger, 100 beasts surged. With the dragon and tiger on the body, the mountains and rivers did not fear. Xiaoqin's heart was clear. Relying on this wondrous state, he materialized the aura of a dragon and tiger on his arms. His entire person became extremely calm. The surrounding air seemed to condense without any fluctuations. Chapter 211. Kill? Xiaoqin stomped heavily on the ground, causing the ground to tremble. He crossed his arms in front of him. Instantly, a tiger and a dragon intersected, merging with Xiaoqin's body. A faint golden glow appeared on his body. A tiger and a dragon moved around the surface of his body. Xiaoqin withdrew his aura, waiting to unleash it. A horrifying force was accumulating. Xiaoqin felt all the muscles in his body swell up. There was a strong force that seemed like it would gush out at any moment. However, this horrifying force was not unleashed in the end. It slowly disappeared. Xiaoqin knew why he had not successfully executed the dragon hissing tiger roar in this wondrous state. It was because this great dragon tiger fist used the dragon and tiger body sculpting art as its foundation. If he had not cultivated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art to the 4th layer, the dragon roar piercing the heavens, he would not be able to materialize the true might of the azure dragon. In order to balance the might of the azure dragon, the ferocious tiger could only lower its own aura. Thus, the crouching tiger hidden dragon would not be able to reach great perfection. Shua. After Xiaoqin executed the crouching tiger hidden dragon, that wondrous state immediately disappeared. He thought to himself, what a pity. If I had cultivated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art to the 4th layer, I would not have been able to do so. If I had cultivated the dragon and tiger body sculpting art to the 4th layer, I might have been able to completely comprehend the great dragon tiger fist in one go. Although the state disappeared, the comprehension ability that the flowing light flower gave him did not decrease. It would accompany Xiaoqin for the rest of his life, giving him boundless benefits. Xiaoqin plucked another flowing light flower petal and released Bai from the spirit blood jade. At this moment, Bai had already sobered up. It looked angrily at Xiaoqin, blaming Xiaoqin for locking it up. Xiaoqin took out a golden petal and wanted to give it to Bai to eat. Who knew that the little fellow would ignore him no matter what he said, as though it was really angry. Don't be angry, little fellow. Here's something good to eat. After you eat it, I will not lock you up again. Xiaoqin was like a wolf grandmother tempting it with a smile. Bai lay on the ground and pretended not to hear what Xiaoqin said. Xiaoqin smiled helplessly. This fellow really couldn't do anything about it. For the sake of this flowing light marigold flower, the scarlet-crowned snake had waited bitterly for God knows how many years. On the other hand, the flowing light flower had a much stronger effect on spirit beasts than on humans. Under certain circumstances, it could even allow spirit beasts to transform in advance. Therefore, the flowing light flower must be given to Bai. Otherwise it would be too wasteful. Xiaoqin walked over and called out a few more times. The little guy just lay on the ground and pretended to be dead, ignoring him. When Xiaoqin saw the situation, he could only use his trump card. He took out a bottle of Liushang Pavilion's wine from his universe ring. Squatting on the ground, Zhang Xian opened the bottle cap and shook it a few times. A rich aroma of wine immediately drifted out. Boom. A white figure flashed before Xiaoqian's eyes. It was like a white specter. Strangely, it could not move at all. It pounced towards the wine bottle in Xiaoqian's hand. Fortunately, Xiaoqian was prepared. With a schwa sound, he switched the wine bottle to his other hand. Otherwise, it might really be snatched away by Bai's sudden leap. You have really become a little drunkard. Eat this flower petal first, then I will give you the wine. Otherwise there is no way, Xiaoqian said as he patted Bai's head. Bai looked at Xiaoqian with a wronged expression. Its cute eyes were misty, it looked very pitiful. It stood up straight and used its white claws to hook onto the wine bottle in Xiaoqian's hand. When Xiaoqian saw how pitiful it was, his heart softened. He said, I'm afraid of you. You are really a little ancestor. I can't hit you or scold you. I even have to provide you with good food and drinks. Bai gulped down a big mouthful of wine. Its little face revealed a blush. Then, it suddenly snatched away the flowing light flower petal in Xiaoqian's hand. It made a face at Xiaoqian and slipped away. Xiaoqian revealed a smile. He used his spiritual sense to chase after it. When he discovered that it had not gone far, he relaxed. After leaving Mo City, Bai had been following him everywhere. There were a few times when they met with danger, and Bai had saved him more than once. Xiaoqian had long forgotten his purpose in capturing Bai. Now in his eyes, Bai was no longer a pet but his best companion. Although Bai cultivated the mysterious 9 heavenly revolution transformation and grew very quickly, its current combat prowess was no weaker than a regular martial saint's. However, Xiaoqian had never thought of asking it to help him in battle. There were a few times when Bai wanted to run out and help him. However, he blocked it in the mixed blood cloud, not letting it out. It was fine as long as it could live happily. If it got injured in battle or got into an accident, it would be too late for regrets. Early the next morning, the first ray of sunlight from the east shone through the window and onto Xiaoqian's face. Xiaoqian opened his eyes and let out a drawn-out breath. He slowly got up and stretched his body. After a night of cultivation, he was filled with vigor. He was full of energy, qi and spirit. He was filled with energy. After washing up, Xiaoqian rushed to the dueling grounds of Qingyun Peak. Lu Riyue had already agreed to teach him listening to the sword and communicating with it. Xiaoqian finally had a clear idea of his purpose in coming to the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. He could not help but be filled with anticipation. He quickened his pace. Pooh! Just as Xiaoqian walked out of the courtyard, a white figure leaped out. Its glossy body reflected a faint glow. It nimbly jumped onto Xiaoqian's shoulder. To Xiaoqian, Xiao Bai's petite body was almost negligible. It did not put any pressure on him at all when it sat on his shoulder. Xiaoqian did not know what difference the flowing light flower made to Bai. He was curious. He could not help but gently pull Bai from his shoulder into his embrace and observe it carefully. Bai's eyes flickered with an intelligent glow. When Xiaoqian looked into its eyes, he felt that it was more intelligent than usual. He could see a trace of shyness in the depths of its eyes. Shyness? I must have seen wrongly. It does not make sense for such a human-like gaze to appear in Bai's eyes. Xiaoqian composed himself and looked again. That shyness had already disappeared. Xiaoqian smiled faintly. He had indeed seen wrongly. Xiaoqian placed Bai back on his shoulder. 10 minutes later he arrived at Qingyun Peak's dueling plaza. It was unknown when Lu Riyue had arrived. She was currently guiding Lu Suifeng in martial techniques. The expression on her face was very stern, and there was some disappointment in her eyes. You failed the exam last year. Your bone age is already 19. If you fail again you will never be able to become a core disciple. Don't go to Jade Maiden Peak for now. I have already helped you apply for leave, Lu Riyue said with a sullen expression. Lu Suifeng said with a bitter expression, that can't be. Sis, I have an appointment with Miss Xinyun in the afternoon. We are going to do a mission together. Dong. Lu Riyue smacked Lu Suifeng's forehead violently. You are useless. She is already a core disciple of Jade Maiden Peak. She might even be a true inheritor. Look at you. You are still acting like trash. In this Qinwu continent, if you do not have strong strength, how can you protect the people you love? You are not even as strong as a girl and you still have the cheek to chase after her. I feel ashamed for you. Lu Suifeng rubbed his head and said, Sis, you can't say that. Then wouldn't a strong and ferocious woman like you have to spend the rest of your life alone? You are asking for a beating. Lu Suifeng nimbly dodged to the side and continued, "Ha sis, I am not wrong. Look at the great Qi nation, which man can defeat you. It would be difficult to find one. You still dare to talk back. You will stay in Qingyun Peak until the end of the month." Lu Riyue glared at Lu Suifeng and said fiercely. When she heard Xiao Chen's footsteps, Lu Riyue could not be bothered with Lu Suifeng. When Lu Riyue saw a bai on Xiao Chen's shoulder, her eyes lit up. She quickly walked over and felt it was strange. She said, "This little fellow, why does it seem like he has more spiritual energy than yesterday?" Xiao Bai seemed to understand Lu Riyue's words. A happy expression appeared on her face as she blinked at Lu Riyue a few times. After a while he cheered and jumped down energetically. He grabbed onto Xiao Chen's leg and shook it continuously. Xiao Chen knew what it meant. He took out a bottle of wine from the universe ring. Bai held the wine and immediately ran to the side happily. Lu Riyue revealed a rare warm smile on her face. She said, "This little fellow will be fine after drinking too much, right?" Xiao Chen joked, "Let him be, he is fine after drinking a little. As long as he doesn't go crazy, he will be fine." Lu Riyue withdrew her smile. She did not forget what she was here for today. She said, "Come with me." Knowing what Lu Riyue was going to teach him, Xiao Chen felt excited in his heart. He quickly followed. Lu Riyue brought Xiao Chen to a weapon rack and stopped. There were all sorts of sabers on the weapon rack. Lu Riyue drew the small saber in her hand with a huang dang sound. The entire weapon rack could not help but shake. All the sabers on the weapon rack flew into the air with a kasi sound. Dang, dang. Lu Riyue shouted softly and all the sabers stabbed into the ground 2 meters deep. They were incomparably neat and densely packed around the two of them. There were at least 500 weapons around them. Xiao Chen was startled. This gentle and quiet communicating with spirit was truly impressive. When fighting with others, if one could control their opponent's weapon, they would already have won half the battle. Before the battle even started, they would already be halfway to victory. After losing their weapons, unless they were people who practiced close combat, their combat prowess would be greatly reduced. Lu Riyue stood across from Xiao Chen. She had a calm expression on her face as she sheathed her saber. She said indifferently, "Listening to the sword and communicating with spirit is split into 4 realms. From the lowest to the highest, they are listening to the sword, controlling the sword, sword heart, and communicating with the spirit. Up until now, I have only reached the stage of controlling the sword. The technique I just executed is what I can achieve after I reach great perfection in controlling the sword." Xiao Chen listened carefully. When he saw Lu Riyue stop, he asked, "Actually, I have a question. Why is listening to the sword and communicating with spirit called listening to the sword and not listening to the saber and communicating with spirit? Why is it known for the sword?" Lu Riyue explained, "The saber did not exist in the beginning. A long time ago there was only one type of weapon in the continent, the sword. There were all sorts of swords. The saber was derived from the shape of the sword. Listening to the sword and communicating with spirit was originally a state of the sword. This state could be applied to the saber. After people got used to it, they were too lazy to change it.